Coming up on this episode of Belief Hole.
So Area X is a location deep in the Ouachita Mountains, and the Ouachita Mountains is like an inland rainforest east of the Rockies. So we went in for 2.5 days, and in that 2.5 days, it was almost constant, like weird activity happening. Unlike everywhere else where you're trying to tune in so you can pick up on stuff, in there you tune out. You have to tune it out because otherwise every single thing that happens becomes Bigfoot to you.
I think outside of Zach, maybe the most skeptical member of the crew, there are certain things that I do believe.
What are those, Jason?
I believe I was haunted by the Bell Witch.
Oh, the Bell Witch.
I believe that this was all designed to bring me back to something I did to taunt the Bell Witch when I was a child.
This is all bringing it back to what you originally asked, though. Those dudes never wanted anything to do with being on camera, any kind of fame, with having their name known. They simply reported something scary or unusual that happened to them, and they got turned into a laughingstock. I went from being pretty much these don't exist to, okay, there's a really good chance they're out here. Because there's no other explanation for what just happened.
Conspiracy.
Synchronicity. Sasquatch.
Donald Trump.
Alien races. Satanism in Hollywood.
MK Ultra. Pleiadians.
Mandela effect.
Close the door, Ed.
Jeremy! Close your door!
Snowflakes.
Inner Earth disagreements.
My lab.
JFK assassination.
Flat Earth.
Corey Feld. Magicians are demons. Specters. Bengali. Sleep paralysis. Muslim Islamicists. The gender spectrum. Yes. Alternative history. Shadow people.
Quiet, I'm trying to say words with the mouth.
Psilocybin. Sorcery. Poltergeist. Sulforaphane. Evolution. Is it real?
Skull and Bones.
Elf Towers.
I would never talk about it. That's old. Y2K.
Cover-ups. The Oklahoma City bombing. Vampire.
Well, hello. Oh, were you going to do it?
Go ahead.
Well, hello. Welcome, listeners. Welcome back. Episode 19, guys.
Feeling clean.
Feeling clean. That's Stephen King's lucky number for all you King fans out there.
Is it 19?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's a bad man.
He's a wonderful man.
Why is bad, evil
badass
man? He's a wonderful man.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, the things that come from that mind are not good.
There's some darkness. Some great fiction.
Definitely some great fiction, Chris.
Good start.
Good start. Let's just get into a fight about Stephen King off the bat. All right, well, welcome to the show, guys. We got the three brothers here, Chris. Hello. John.
That's me.
And Jeremy. Today's going to be a good show, right? We got an interview coming up today with Small Town Monsters.
That is fun.
It was very fun.
We already did it.
Let's do that again. We did it, so it's weird now. We're talking about it later. This was our first in-house interview, and it was one to remember, that's for sure.
Yeah, really great guys and some fascinating stories.
If you guys aren't familiar with them, tuning in right now, they're a production company who do really well-done documentaries on cryptids around North America on a level you don't normally find in this sort of field of documentarianism. As far as, cryptids and...
Yeah, really like high-level production.
Yeah, really well done.
Great storytelling. We get into that into the interview for sure. Just the way they do it is just you're drawn into the films. It's not like
there's an art.
It's not some documentary on the Travel Channel. It's not a network thing. It's cinematic. It just pulls you in. So they had an interesting experience in Area X, which I think is some of the most fascinating stuff. A secret, secluded area where they encounter Bigfoot on a regular basis.
What I thought was interesting about Seth is that I think when he was talking about the Bigfoot stuff is how when they went into Area X and he was saying how he had really lost a lot of belief in any of this stuff was
leading
possible.
up to it.
Yeah, leading up to it, it was like fading quickly.
He covered it for so long.
It was like at 20% or something as they were going into this Area X space. And then when he left, he was like back at 80% after all this phenomena had happened. So
yeah, for someone to be more of a skeptic and then going...
Well, and I think that goes, in their productions, they do a lot of research, and it's a lot about the locations that they were shooting in and the people who were living at the time. And it's kind of a geographical story as well as it is, just about the accounts. Right. So I think because he's so interested in the folklore and the research, it's more about the story, the truth of the story, and less about I really want this to be real.
Yeah, it's definitely like a whole encompassing picture of how it affected the people involved and just how it interacted with these people, not just so much about the phenomenon.
Right. And I think
itself.
that's what makes it so much more interesting when the filmmaker then starts to realize that there's more to this than they initially thought.
These movies are compelling. The Bray Road Beast, which we'll talk about, was a freaky movie, freaky documentary about the Beast of Bray Road in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. But watching that movie, it was scary, and even though I know they approached it with a skeptical eye, but you still are drawn into the fear of it, the potentiality of the monster that might live there.
Yeah, and once we get through the news, before we jump into the interview, I'd like you to touch on a specific point in that film because we sort of lead into the interview talking about it.
Okay.
Because it was a pretty fascinating aspect to the story.
Well, yeah, the one thing, I guess I could just mention that right now. I would definitely recommend watching The Bray Road Beast, I think. I mean, I have a personal love in my heart for the Dogman phenomena. Do. And one thing that I found fascinating about, and I think we talk about this in the interview a little bit, but let me just grab this real quick here.
Ugly woman.
If anyone's seen the movie Congo.
So for anyone that's just listening, wondering what's happening.
From 1995, Tim Curry. Great film if you like 90s film.
Yeah, the only reason that's being played is because before we started recording, we were talking about... John said, I don't have that gorilla story because someone sent in a Bigfoot encounter we're going to play. And John's like, I don't have that gorilla story. And I was like, the gorillas. We need to send
story.
we need to get the clip.
Gorilla story.
We need to get the clip of Tim Curry saying the gorillas.
The diamonds are here.
Anyway, great movie, but that's the only reason.
And then the ugly woman clip is from Amy, the gorilla that uses sign language, and it has like a voice that speaks for her, and she's like, ugly woman. Amy, pretty.
She's jealous of Helen Hunt or whatever.
Hunt.
No, I don't think it was Helen Hunt.
Wouldn't be?
I think it was the mean wife from that
Truman Show?
Truman Show. I think that's who it was.
Was it?
Yeah.
Laura Linney?
Laura Linney.
I don't know.
Ooh, weird. Laura Linney, Helen Hunt, two alliteration names, and I always mix those two together.
That's not weird.
That's the weirdest thing that's happened all month to us.
Fascinating point, Chris.
Thank you.
Forget about that ghost story.
Back to the Bray Road Beast comment you made here.
Okay, yeah. So mentioning about the Bray Road Beast, there's a story that you hear a lot with. I mean, the Bray Road Beast, the main story. There was a woman who reported seeing this wolf-like creature on the roads of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And what's really interesting, and Chris, you and I misremember this, and so I'm not sure which it is. And Seth or whoever from Small Town Monsters would be like, oh, that's this thing. But I couldn't remember if it was the woman who reported the story, and her name was Dorothy Gibson, had the original report in the 90s about seeing this creature on the road. And I thought it was when she went in to talk to the animal control officer for the county, John Fredrickson, that there's an element to that story that you never hear. You always hear that story, and famously, Linda Gottfried saw that the animal control officer for the county had a folder that said werewolves on it, and that's when it became news.
Right, that's when she realized that this was going to be news. This is like something big.
Right. So, but when I believe it was when Doris Steen went to report the account initially, and she wanted nothing to do with this after the fact, there were some bizarre things that happened around the report and around the investigation that had to do with the occult that you never hear about.
Right.
And there were things like when she went in to do a report, I think that's when this happened. There were books flying off the shelves.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was when Fredrickson was recounting the story to Linda Gottfried. Then books behind him started falling off the shelves.
See, I thought it was.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, in any case, but I didn't know
the documentary.
They bring up in the documentary that there was occult activity in the area that was happening that they were investigating at the time. And you often hear connections between, beast summonings. Right? Familiars and stuff with witchcraft and occult activity. There was a lot of dark stuff happening in the area around the same time.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about the documentary that Small Town Monsters did, is they covered aspects of it that you never hear anywhere else.
Right.
Which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, so guys, check it out for that. Even if you know the story of the Bray Road Beast, it's a really great retelling.
There's a lot of new information.
They get interviews that you never, like the interview with the animal control officer.
Small Town Monsters.
Small Town Monsters, check it out, because you've never heard him being interviewed anywhere else before.
Right.
Or since.
What? Oh, I thought you were talking about Seth.
Oh, Seth? No, he's been interviewed before. No, in that movie,
Not
Bray
like
Beast.
an interview on Believe Hole.
Yeah, so check it out. But you guys, we'll get into that shortly here. We'll get the interview for you coming up. And do you guys want to do the news?
Let's do it. Punch it. Yay, news time.
Valid news. We need a new valid news to go under that. with our voices.
I think everyone knows that our news is completely valid.
We are valid news. Okay,
Yeah,
Chris.
goes without saying.
All right, Chris, what's our first news item of the day?
Okay, so I wanted to cover this because after our interview with Small Town Monsters, we went home, and next day we were over at dinner at Mom and Dad's, and John was over, and he came downstairs and he's like, have you guys looked into the Momo thing? And we assumed that, and he was referring to Small Town Monsters project coming up, Momo, which is about like
the Missouri Monster.
Yeah, a hairy, pumpkin-headed creature that likes to travel in rivers.
It's pumpkin-headed?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds like a nice
Sounds
man.
like a nice guy. And then John's like, yeah, I've been looking into it. It's like really creepy. And then we realized what John was looking into was something completely different, but just synchronistically happens to be trending right now everywhere.
The Momo phenomenon.
The Momo phenomenon. Well, it's not a phenomenon. It's well, I'll just
I'd
read
say
you.
it's a
I'll read you a
phenomenon.
little
I'd say it's a
introduction.
phenomenon.
I guess it's becoming a
It's
phenomenon.
not a phenomenon, that's for sure.
Nice.
It's a cultural phenomenon.
Well, good wordplay. I'll just read an introduction here. This one's from Vox.
Oh, good.
Right. Well, I figure I pulled the
Vox
BBC. It's this. This is just an introduction. I'm not reading the other stuff.
I'm sure they're pretty accurate on this stuff.
Yeah, this is pretty accurate. What is the Momo Challenge? According to lore, the Momo Challenge is a viral game shared on messaging services like WhatsApp that goads young children into violence or even suicide. Images of the devilish bird lady supposedly pop up with creepy messages and commands that are said to escalate to extreme violence and horror.
Ugly woman.
That's good. Other iterations of the story claim to feature the terrifying image spliced into children's programs like Peppa Pig or video games like Fortnite and videos posted on YouTube. Even more news reports say the challenge has spread to Snapchat. But the reality is it's a viral hoax. I mean, that's most people are reporting. A viral hoax.
A viral
most people
hoax.
reporting.
Well, you're getting it from Vox, right, though?
Everywhere you look, Fox News,
this is-
BBC.
What about the independent journalists?
Well, the
Chris?
only ones saying that this thing is really happening are morning talk shows and police departments reporting to schools and local schools reporting to the parents. That's what's kind of creating the fear. But there hasn't been any videos.
How are the police saying if they don't have
So
any
this is what
evidence?
happened. I know the story.
They're
So
getting messages from concerned parents.
so I know the story. So this was tracked down to.
So I know the story. I'm Jerry. I'm over here. Listen to me.
I'm over here, guys. I'm over here. I'm on the show. So the original story,
Not for long.
it was tracked back to an original post on Facebook, apparently, where someone had warned about this. It was someone on a local Facebook group, and then
It was a mom somewhere.
Yeah, and so then it got picked up locally, and then that's when people brought it up at the school. Like, we're worried about this. Can we get some attention on this? And then I think it was the Telegraph or something picked it up from like a local Facebook forum, and it wasn't like fact checked or anything. They posted it because, well, one, it's a scary story
And it's sensational.
And then from that one posting, the news just picks up, and like the news does now, they didn't fact check it. They just posted it for clicks, for whatever.
Right.
And it trended, and it became this like internet rumor turned mass media phenomenon.
Right, because parents
It's too
are...
bad because it's a creepy cool story.
It's
Well, it's
creepy.
not too bad.
I was going to say.
That's really not.
It's probably fortunate because kids aren't actually killing themselves in a challenge.
Right.
because
So it's
of
a creepy bird woman.
So yeah, it comes
right?
from the image of Momo, the possessed-looking chicken lady, predates pretty much every report of the supposed challenge and appears to have nothing to do with the viral sensation. It is a statue called Mother Bird, made by artist Kayazuki Asawa, who works with the Japanese special effects company Link Factory.
It's terrifying.
Images
Yeah,
of the
it's really evil looking.
Images of the statue from a gallery display first began circulating as early as 2016. So this is what was funny. I looked this up today to get some citations for the show, and there was new news about it from this morning that said...
New news?
New news.
From Celine Dion. New news.
Celine Dion.
News channel. But they're all clickbait headlines from the big major news corporations saying, artist destroys Momo sculpture. So you think, oh, okay, he's destroying it because it's
Evil.
because of what's going on, and because it's cursed or whatever. And you read that he threw it in the garbage a couple years ago because it was a sculpture that was made of medium that didn't last very long. So he just threw it out because it got old.
Right, but then
they tagged it in the clickbait headline as artist destroys cursed sculpture.
right, just for clickbait.
Why wouldn't you stuff it or
Preserve it?
yeah?
Well, it
That's
was
pretty
actually
cool
what's
looking.
interesting about it is
Can't you freeze it?
interesting about it is, and I didn't grab the name.
Taxidermy.
taxidermy. Well, it wasn't a living animal.
It was just a special effects puppet, right?
It was a representation. No, it was a sculpture, but it was a representation of a half woman, half bird creature from Japanese folklore. And I wish I had grabbed the name of that because that would be interesting.
Yeah,
there's the eyes that just look terrifying.
Yeah.
Though.
Well, it looks like if you're not looking at a picture right now, listeners, it looks like the girl from The Ring, but then you mix that with remember the really creepy part of Beetlejuice?
That's what I was thinking.
Pull their faces down and bulge their eyes out.
It's the bulging eyes.
Yeah,
part,
and then the pulled face down.
And
it's
then
almost like
chicken
triangular.
legs, just the head, and then chicken legs.
Chicken legs coming out of the cleavage of the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really creepy.
Sexy.
But I thought that was funny because Chris showed me the article and it was artist destroys Momo sculpture, and you're like, oh, probably because it's cursed, or probably because there's all this like controversy around it. He must have destroyed it. And then you click on it and it's like, yeah, he destroyed it like a couple years ago.
He did. He
just
threw it in the
trash.
garbage.
It's like destroyed sounds
It
like
basically
he
got old.
Like
He,
in
like,
a
took a hatchet
rage.
to it
Yeah.
and, like-
He was pretty sad though to hear about how it became such a big thing.
Right. Someone just took this
Pitched it.
picture and made it a scary story that is a danger to your kids. But it's just that clickbait. Just it would be like posting an article now with the headline "President Assassinated," and then you click on it. It's like in 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated by a supposedly alone gunman.
Right.
But you read it as like President Assassinated. Like, oh, is Trump dead?
Yeah.
Like, is that what they're saying? Like, it's just that just to get people to click on
Right,
it. That's
yeah.
that's
we have
the
a real
media
problem
now.
with that in the world.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at today.
Sadness. Anyways, yeah. So basically, it seems like it was a creepypasta gone wild.
Right.
But there have been stuff like that in the past, like the blue whale. Did you hear about that, John? The blue whale game
For kids.
Blue whale challenge. Basically, a similar thing that this was a couple years ago. Started in Russia, but it was allegedly, and they're still debating this. But someone came out and admitted they had orchestrated this game, and he's in jail or was for a few years. But 130 people had died, children or
What?
teens.
130?
100. That's the alleged number. But the idea was it was a game where you get inducted into sort of this like clandestine group. And you start by doing something like staying up late and watching a scary movie, and it escalates through 50 steps. To one point, you carve a blue whale into your arm, and the last step is you kill yourself. And allegedly, you would do things throughout this that would expose you to blackmail. And at the last point, you either kill yourself or we're going to show everybody all these things that you send in to us, all these pictures, things like that.
Right.
Oh.
So, yeah, allegedly 103 people died. There was a Russian, 21-year-old Russian who came out and said that he orchestrated it. He was, and he had the capabilities to.
Is he in jail?
He's in jail for a few years. I don't know if he's still in there. Anyway, so this stuff does kind of happen. I think the recent thing that was creepy
Yeah,
was
it's certainly not out of the realm of
right.
possibility.
And I think the big fear is that they're going to be copycatters because we, meaning like the country, frustrated, concerned parents and mass media has unintentionally made this such a big story that I think the concern now is copycats are actually going to splice this into kids' YouTube videos because that has happened. Like the one with
it's called MTV.
there was it was on the YouTube Kids app, and someone had spliced in on a video on this app a man demonstrating to the children how you could slice your wrist correctly. He looks at the camera and he says, across is for attention, long ways for results, and then he looks and points at the camera and says, end it, and then smiles and winks and like walks off, and then it goes back to the cartoon.
Yeah.
So it does happen. I think, obviously this was way, over pushed as like legitimate thing happening. And
Right. Well, and also, it just this stuff has been happening for a long time. I remember the story of a 4chan post where they were supposedly teaching you how you could grow your own crystals. And it was just this innocent post that was like, yeah, well, you can grow your own crystals with household items. So here's the ingredients list, and here's how you put it together. And you bury your face into the crystals, and you can watch them grow. Just put the stuff together.
Right.
And it was ingredients for some sort of incendiary explosive. So people were going to the hospital because they'd try to build their own crystals with this.
But I wonder if that was ever
directions.
really verified, because some of the stuff we heard, like the kids eating Tide Pods, that was proven to be bogus.
Well, this was an actual post on 4chan. It was giving the.
Well, 4chan is full of bogus. That's the point of 4chan.
What I'm saying is the post was put on 4chan as instructions on how to do
gotcha.
it. So even if it was like a fun prank, like no one's going to do it, like you're putting out there's a risk. But my concern would be that it's all this more fear around YouTube. More like, well, we got to be more careful about what goes on YouTube, you know what I mean? And then the more and more censorship.
We're already pretty far down that rabbit hole anyways.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is just another element, but
neat.
Creepy.
Jared, did you want to get into your news story before we go to the Bigfoot report?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I was watching this, have you ever seen that 3 a.m. challenge thing?
Oh, tell me about that. Does that have to do with like...
well, it's just this one channel where like they just do the most horrific, like Like the last one I saw, they were like, make your own voodoo doll and then hurt someone with it. They just went through all the steps.
Ugh.
And like it was sponsored by like all the normal sponsors that you think. Yeah, it was like this video is completely get millions and millions of views.
The advertisement
like
on it,
all the big advertisers, but like you're not allowed to question anything.
Conspiracies.
But this is totally fine. This is like directed at kids.
Right.
And it's like so dark and disturbing. Like you can tell these kids that are doing it are just out of their minds.
Right.
They look like possessed.
Yeah, well, they're up at 3 a.m. every night. They probably have no sleep.
Every single one is about how to,
Invoke
engage
a demon
with demons,
or
like summon demons and make bargains with the devil.
Right.
Like that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But anytime you question, a narrative, like no, you're demonetized.
That's dangerous.
And getting kicked off the platform.
Yeah, it's dangerous to question the mainstream, but it's not dangerous to play with something.
So that's that.
So that's that.
I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there at the end.
Tangents are good. That's where you find the gold sometimes.
Golden nuggets.
Or the diamonds, like Tim Curry might find.
The diamonds are here.
He found them. Spoiler alert, he dies.
So let's take a break. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, let's take a quick break. I've got a little bit more news, and then we'll do the Bigfoot story. Let's do it.
Okay. We are back.
And we're back.
Welcome, Robot John.
Thank you. Motherbird.
Motherbird. Oh, freaky stuff.
Jared, did you want to get into your news article?
Well, on a lighter note,
it kind of relates to, yes, a little bit lighter.
but still sad because it involves the death of llamas.
Llama death.
News number 2.
Yeah, or llamas if you're Spanish speaking. So this comes from the Louisville Courier Journal. Title: Attack on Louisville llamas appears canine in nature, officials say. What really happened to the 6 llamas killed Monday at a farm in Louisville? The entire picture is not clear, but Louisville Metro Animal Services announced Tuesday that a veterinarian who examined the llamas said the wounds appear canine in nature, or dogman in nature, for those in the know.
I wish I'd said that in there.
Spokeswoman Tia Barnes added that the agency cannot confirm whether a coyote, dog, or other large animal is responsible for the attack. Let's play the clip. This is a good point.
Okay.
Let's set up the story. This is some the witness testimony from the account.
During the night, I started hearing a very loud, strong, ferocious barking. It sounded like several dogs.
Men.
I couldn't confirm it was a dog.
Man.
Because it was so loud. It was very strong, yelping, barking. And it definitely had attacking sounds to it.
The llamas that we were finding out in the field there, definitely they were being consumed.
This
Is that part of the news?
That's in there.
A very safe environment around here, and we've been told there's been coyotes around here. Personally, I haven't seen one, but this is very unusual.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
The lightning
Gary.
wasn't actually in the clip.
Did you wait? You added that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just, for emphasis.
You really like that lightning
I love
strike
that
sound.
lightning.
It reminds me of
Old school.
Bunnicula or like
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so cheesy.
That's why it's so good.
So to wrap up the rest of this news report here, Caroline Willette, one of the owners of the Louisville Llama Farm, said she woke up around 7:30 a.m. Monday to see blood and tufts of wool spread around the barn and her property. The farm is in the 1500 block of Shoof Lane, right behind the Louisville Zoo by Beergrass Creek. 5 of the llamas were found dead, with bite marks behind their ears and by their flanks. Another llama was badly injured and needed to be put down, Willette said. 7 more llamas were injured, so that's 5 dead, 7 injured. Willette estimated the animals' deaths will cost $10,000 at least in damages. A fence near the front of the farm's property was smashed and covered in blood when one of the llamas, quote, tried to run away, or when the dogman entered, she said. I had to say that. I know they are just livestock, Willette said, but these are my babies. That's really sad. While many neighbors were quick to speculate that coyotes were responsible, Willette was skeptical. She said llamas are good at defending themselves. One of the llamas that was killed was over 500 pounds.
Dude, llamas are big too.
Dude, okay, so these llamas are...
They're not like...
No, they're not
Have you ever
small.
seen Star Wars?
Yes. Are you going to talk about the thing that Luke Skywalker cut open? Yeah, to bury himself in?
Yeah. They're big.
That wasn't a llama, John.
Yeah, it was.
It was a rancor.
Space llama. A rancor?
I think it's called a rancor.
Yeah, but it was a llama.
It was just a llama. Well, actually, I think they did dress up something, right? But I think
No, it's
I was
animatronic.
thinking of a camel.
It was animatronic.
What's a llama? Aren't they
Are
close?
you serious? A llama?
Oh, I know what a llama is.
It's
I mean,
look
they
like-
look like camels.
They're big.
They don't have.
They don't have the humps.
Llamas have fur. Though.
Yeah.
And they have the tall ears.
Yeah, the ears that point up.
Oh, Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think
Is it?
that's in there.
Okay, that sounds
Remember
right.
he feeds her and throws. He's like, "Eat your food, Dina."
That's the llama's thing.
So, okay, but why could these be coyotes?
Okay, no,
like
wait,
a
wait,
pack
wait.
of coyotes.
Well, this is what's interesting is that
Coyotes are small though.
they're small. Okay, John,
You can't pack
John
them.
brought up the
What
point.
about a wolf?
Well, okay, wolves are not native to the area, not in large numbers. Or coyotes. Well, coyotes around there, but yeah, the size of these things. That's one of the interesting points is that they're 300 to 500 pounds. 5 were killed, and 7 others were injured.
Did they get eaten?
They're guard llamas. So these llamas are
Guard llamas.
Yeah, that's what they're called. They defend
I was
herds.
thinking about pit bulls, but I just decided to go with the llama. You know,
Well, I think
they can spit.
that's camels. Maybe llamas spit.
No, llamas spit too.
Everything spits.
Delicious. That was good.
So yeah, that's what's interesting. One of the things that's interesting is that the llamas, they're guard llamas, which are they're put in herds because they're more aggressive and protective, and they're giant. And so to take one of these things down,
Okay, they're
Yeah, the
they
guard
guard the
llamas.
other
But
llamas.
wasn't there a lot of barking heard? Dogmen, we all know that dogmen don't bark. They speak in like
they do.
ancient languages, right?
They do.
And they
is that what
smoke
they do?
cigarettes.
They smoke cigarettes, but they do some yips and some barks. But she was saying it was so loud. And one other interesting thing is that some neighbors reported that the attack happened in the span of minutes, like 10 minutes or so.
They weren't eaten or anything. Though. They were just.
were they
Well, not
exsanguinated?
wholly. Like obviously they had bites taken out of them and they were killed and had been partially consumed at least. I don't think they ate the entire llama.
No,
but
it seems like they were killed to be killed, though. They weren't killed
like for fun.
food.
The guy said they were where they had been consumed, so they must have eaten at
Were
least
there
some
tracks?
of them. They didn't report on any tracks. So, some dogmen
I'm going
wear
coyotes.
shoes.
I'm going coyotes.
But what if it's a hybrid? So we've been hearing more and more about
The
these
dog-man wolf hybrid?
Yeah, or some sort of wolf creature hybrid that's souped up and amped up by like government testing.
government?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they
that's
have like
possible.
these chimera reports coming out. Recently, they've been like admitting some of this chimera activity with DNA
What is
testing.
it? Is a chimera?
It's a combination of two or more different
okay.
animals.
I
Yeah.
gotcha.
But so I was wondering, because there's another article, and this is from the Washington Post. This is back in May, but it's interesting because it relates. The title is "A Wolf-Like Creature Was Stalking Livestock in Montana. Authorities have no idea what it is." And there's a picture of this thing, and it fills up the entire trail of a truck bed. This giant wolf dog creature. But what's interesting about it is that, well, I'll just read a bit here. In Montana, it's legal to shoot wolves that get perilously close to people or livestock, and that's exactly what rancher Denton thought he did, putting a bullet into something with 4 legs and canine teeth that came within stalking distance of this herd. But when he summoned wildlife officials to investigate, something was off. The dead animal's canine teeth were too short. The front paws were tiny for a wolf, and the claws on those paws were too long. The ears were too big as well, and the coat was wrong. This was no wolf. It was a young, non-lactating female and a canid, or member of the dog family, but that's about as far as animal experts got. Quote, "We have no idea what this is, but it's probably a dogman." Bruce Ockley, information
you
manager.
can't just throw quotes in there,
Can I
Jerry.
just do that?
You keep calling it valid news.
Okay, so anytime I mention dogman.
Oh, you made that up. Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, and we won't know until we get the DNA test back. But it just reminds me of that, like, you're hearing these stories more and more about chimeras being created and experiments going on and dogmen.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate irony? If let's assume we report on all these monsters all the time, and there turns up that they were somehow all hallucination or misidentification, but then at one point we get to the point where we just start making monsters by combining animals and genetic mutation, and then 20 years from now, there are monsters everywhere. They're just eating people, living in the woods.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to cover more and more as we go on. I think someone even wrote in and suggested we cover some of the chimera activity that's been going on, the DNA manipulation to create these hybrids. Some say, they obviously are doing some of it for medical purposes, like growing human parts in pigs, organs and the like. Like that's
going on
admitted.
for a while.
But more and more of it's happening, and we have this technology for decades. So who knows, guys? Who knows what's out there and what's
With
going on?
any luck, we'll be swimming in monsters.
Yes. Speaking of monsters,
Before we jump in, I just had just 2 other short anecdotes that are just bits. John, aren't you a Jose Canseco fan?
What?
Aren't
that's
you a
true.
big Jose Canseco
yeah,
fan?
post resolvers while growing up.
Yeah, I used to like him, like Mark McGuire back in
those guys.
1996.
Those are baseball players, right?
Yeah.
If you're still a fan, you can now go on a Bigfoot hunt with Jose Canseco. Nice. Yeah. So Jose Conseco tweeted out, go on a Bigfoot and alien excursion with Jose. He's putting them together. Get them all together. With Jose Conseco, contact Morgan Management at 702-374-3735. And apparently, if you do contact him, you get a text from his manager.
You get a free home run with each purchase.
You get a text from his manager that says, spend the weekend with Jose for $5,000 cash. Only 5 lucky individuals will get a golden ticket. Oompa Loompas ain't got nothing on Bigfoot. Travel in his custom RV to authentic alien sightings and proven Bigfoot habitats. Camp out in the wild. Tell stories.
It's only $5,000.
We should do this.
I love that was your response. Only $5,000.
Well, it just seems like
Jose Conseco. It seems like he needs
it's
money.
like his name isn't drawing like a real price tag anymore.
Right. Well, yeah.
I mean, you could do that with anyone that knew about this stuff. You just be like, it's $5,000.
Well, yeah. Wouldn't you think you'd make more money like, hey, baseball lessons with Jose Conseco? You know,
Yeah, that is weird.
Come on a Bigfoot.
Maybe
hunt in
he's
my
just really
RV.
interested in this
Probably.
stuff.
I think he's interested in some weird stuff. So the only other thing I want to mention was there's a movie coming out I want to see. Or it's out. I'm sorry, it's out. And it has 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's
pretty good.
Some people criticized it for not being great. But it's called The Man Who Killed Hitler and then Bigfoot. And it actually
Wait,
looks...
the man who killed both Hitler and Bigfoot?
Yeah, The Man Who Killed Hitler and then Bigfoot.
It's a comedy?
No, it's not actually.
It's a documentary?
No, it's a film. It's like a drama.
Wait, what's
action.
it called again? The man that killed Bigfoot and Hitler? Or Hitler and Bigfoot?
Yes. Yeah, and guess who's it starring?
Please tell me it's
Mark Ruffalo.
Val
Virgil-
Kilmer. It's Virgil Earp from Tombstone, Sam Elliott.
really.
It's actually, and it looks really like cinematographically really well done. So that's why I think on Rotten Tomatoes it has like 75%.
It's probably a cool like.
It's a
indie
real
film.
movie though, right?
It's a real movie.
Okay.
And it basically, I want to watch it. It came out, but it's basically about a guy who, it's suggestive that he's killed Hitler. He has like kind of waking nightmares and like kind of memories of this, and you see it like interspersed, and then it deals with that. And then apparently at some point in the movie, it takes a beeline where the government's like, there's an Ebola outbreak, and the thing that's carrying it is Bigfoot, and we need you to hunt it down. And so then it totally changes to this hunt for Bigfoot by Sam Elliott. But he's like this war-torn veteran of Hitler murder.
I imagine it would be a sort
Weird.
of like comedy, sort of tongue-in-cheek thing. Like what was that great movie Bubba Hotep with?
It's a drama. It's not like a
It's no
comedy.
humor.
It just happens to have a bizarre name.
And bizarre concept. I mean,
Well,
the
yeah.
guy that killed Hitler supposedly and then kills Bigfoot. So
All right.
anyways, check it out. Let us know
Sounds
what you
kinda
guys
good.
think. Yeah, I want to check it out. But more importantly, check out Bray Road Beast by Small Time Monsters and their films because they are good because we have seen them.
And before we do that, I think we should go ahead and play that story by our
Terry Whitehorn.
Terry Whitehorn.
Yeah, our friend
from
Terry Whitehorn. Terry Whitehorn. Yeah. Let's play his story. He's got an encounter with Bigfoot. Well, with an unknown creature in the wilderness that is probably Bigfoot.
Yeah, thanks for sending this in, Terry.
Let's play it up.
I would like to share with you an encounter that I had with what I believe was a Sasquatch. I remember it vividly. It was the summer of 2013. I was at my parents' cabin in Frederick, Michigan. They have 5 acres on the Manistee River. The cabin is surrounded by woods, and there are only 4 or 5 houses on the private drive you take to get to the cabin. It was approximately 2:30 a.m., and I was standing out by the campfire with my 2 brothers, age young 30s, and my 2 uncles, age mid-40s. I was standing on one side of the campfire with my back towards the woods, facing the cabin, while the other 4 were on the opposite side, engaging in conversation. A country station was playing music in the background. As I stared into the fire, I began to hear the sound of footsteps in the woods behind me. I turned my ear to the woods and took a closer listen to ensure I was not hearing things. Sure enough, I could hear the sound of footsteps slowly crunching on the dried moss and dead branches that lay on the forest floor. If I had to take a guess, the sound was perhaps 30 feet away and coming closer. I turned back around and quickly tell the guys to stop talking and turn the music off. Soon as we go completely silent, that's all there is silence for about a half a minute. Then the footsteps begin creeping closer and getting louder. Then the footsteps stopped after about a minute. Then there was silence again, and we were all just looking at each other, wondering, what the hell? Then about a minute and a half goes by, and I shit you not, we hear this howl.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Mind you, I come from a family of hunters for years, my brothers included, and we have never heard anything like this in the woods before. We look at each other in disbelief, mouthing the words WTF. The creature takes off in the opposite direction, full sprint, crashing through the forest and snapping branches. We then hear a high-pitched squealing noise, which sounded like a rabbit in distress. So the squealing stops and the creature continues to run down to the river and crosses the river, splashing and making all kinds of noise. Now up there, sound travels far, especially when it is quiet at night, so this thing was large because the river is a good 80 or more yards from where we were standing. My uncle then dashes to the cabin. We all follow thinking he saw something. He turns on the floodlight, grabs his pistol. We did not see or hear anything after that. The next morning, I walked through the woods. However, I was unable to find any evidence of a Sasquatch. When I returned home, my brother and I looked up all kinds of animal calls to try and match up what we possibly heard. Nothing was making sense until we came across an interview with Les Stroud, or better known as Survivor Man. In this clip, he describes the same exact sound we heard when he was filming in Alaska. What's crazy is how identical the events in his story matched up with ours. So we reached out to the BFRO and tell them what I am telling you now. We don't hear anything back for a couple of months until we get a call one day. We talk to a representative from their team and they tell us, yes, we received your message. That particular month you described, we received 80 different accounts of people calling, describing the exact same sound. Some people even reported actually seeing an adult and youth creature. They also said your cabin located in Frederick, Michigan is a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings, and we would like to take a team out there to set up equipment and investigate. To this day, we have not lined up a time for them to come out. However, I have the individual's contact information, and we will be setting this up this summer to have the BFRO come out to the property. I will report back with any findings that may come about. So that's it. I've been wanting to share this story for some time, but it's hard to not sound like a crazy person. But like Les said, that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you guys for listening. I love what you're doing with the show, and I will continue to support you guys in any way I can. See you in the belief hole. Peace and love. Terry.
Oh, thanks,
Thanks,
Terry.
Terry. That's a good story.
So is he from Michigan then?
I don't know if he, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought he was from Canada.
I think he's from Upper Michigan, which would make him pretty much Canadian. Maybe he's
pretty much. They've annexed that part of Michigan.
Either way, he's a great guy.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I wonder what the property looks like.
Actually, Brian, who called in that one time with the ghost story, he's a friend who has a cabin in Upper Michigan. He always wants us to come up and go to the UP, Upper Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be amazing there. Beautiful, gorgeous, and apparently full of Bigfoot.
Yeah,
so we should go up and
it's
check
very,
it out.
very
remote.
Remote, that's the word. But yeah, Terry, follow up with the report, man. If you have an investigation with the BFR, let us know when that's happening and let us know what happens. Because it's interesting, and we'll link that in the show, the link he put to Les Stroud's story that correlates with that. Because you hear that sound, and I really want to give credit to Terry for really...
it sounds
really
like a gorilla.
Yeah, you hear something that sounds like a large primate in North America.
Yeah, definitely. Could there potentially be gorillas in...
Just like escape from the zoo?
Well, one arm of the Bigfoot community definitely believes in the idea of the North American wood ape, where it's the Bigfoot's less of a supernatural being and more of like just a gorilla who's really good at hiding.
Or not just a gorilla. You know? I think the North American wood ape suggests that it is
some sort of
a different kind, like more of an
evolved creature.
Right, in between human and ape. Or just a different species altogether. And I think that's probably what it is.
Well, some people think it's a Gigantopithecus, an ancient, allegedly long, extinct, giant bipedal orangutan type creature.
Right, the crossover
which is like,
land
I forget how, like 15 feet tall or something monstrous. Yeah. That is real. It did exist. So a lot of people in the Bigfoot community kind of say if there is a Bigfoot out there, the best chance we have, it's probably
the Gigantopithecus. I think some people...
Because it actually is in the fossil record.
Some people have gone along with that, like Jeff Meldrum, the guy who first discovered dermal ridges in footprints. Those big footprints you see in the mud, he's actually identified dermal ridges, meaning like your fingerprints, but in the toes of some of these prints, which you can't, who's faking that in the 70s, Who's faking that? that's pretty invested as a hoaxer. So yeah, it definitely a lot of interesting stuff with that.
But I still like to believe that he's somewhat metaphysical.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Like, I think it's so possible that there's things, primates that we haven't fully explored, or very few of them. Mm-hmm. But when you start getting into the idea that they're highly human-like, intelligent, and possibly metaphysical, which is Chris
or other dimensional.
Like you enjoy thinking about.
I do enjoy that.
Or other dimensional. Well, there have been stories with Bigfoot and UFOs.
Well, they seem to align, and we mentioned that a little. We kind of discussed that a little bit on the interview, but it seems like you have this sort of crossover between paranormal phenomenon and cryptid phenomenon. Like Bigfoot seen a lot with orbs or flights in the sky, or the example of the interview with Fredrickson where he's talking about the wolf-like creature, and then at the same time books start falling off his shelves. Or you go to like Skinwalker Ranch where you had tons of overlapping of paranormal phenomenon and monstrous type phenomenon.
Like the Bigfoot or the Bigfoot looking thing with no neck that climbs out of a dimensional gateway in the sky.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I think it's funny how Terry said it's hard to not sound crazy.
Yeah.
And like listen to what we say every show.
It's like, well, you're in the right place, Terry.
Yeah, you're in good company there, brother.
We're saying it in seclusion in this dungeon, but we're also broadcasting.
He did say he did give us permission to use his full name. So,
and I love his full name.
It's a beautiful name,
Whitehorn.
It's
magical
sounding.
I think he comes from a long line of rhinoceros hunters. That's where it comes from. Terry. Thank you, Terry. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. And we should move along to the actual interview.
Let's get into the interview. We're getting into the heart of it here.
So listeners out there, please welcome our friends, Small Town Monsters. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We have Seth Breedlove and Jason Utes. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
I like the way you pronounce the T.
Utes. I wanted
This makes me feel little spicy,
little dignified.
Utes.
That's Latin.
Thanks for coming on. I was going to say shout out to Trisha. She messaged me and said you guys should reach out to Seth and the guys at Small Town Monsters. They're over in Wadsworth. It was literally the night before we just started watching Invasion on Chestnut Ridge.
Cool.
Like the night before.
Yeah, we didn't know who you guys were or anything.
We were counting like,
we're just looking for something good that's done well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We could,
because those are hard.
There's not a lot.
No, I'm sure you guys know. There's like when it comes to this sort of stuff, like it's either really good research or there's not really any good special. Even like Monster Quest, even like the Travel Channel stuff. Some of that I feel like
the investigative stuff that has the hardest time. Like that's what we're trying to do with On the Trail of is like bridge the gap between what we currently do and like Monster Quest, and find like a happy medium where you still have like a really good story, but you also get the like investigative, investigative aspect of paranormal research.
Right. So On the Trail of you have a Bigfoot series out with that one, right?
Is that how? Well, we had the On the Trail of Champ was the first one.
Right, that one's out. Yeah.
And oh boy. On the trail, On the Trail of Bigfoot comes out March 29th. They're like as much. They started as much as like a filmmaking experiment as they did like us making a miniseries. They're entirely shot by one guy. So On the Trail of Champ was entirely filmed by my friend Alexander Pedikov, and then I did all of On the Trail of Bigfoot. So
that's like the first thing you're doing where you're like in front of the camera, is that right?
Well, I hate that aspect of it.
Okay.
Yeah, no. It's fun for me because it's a return to our days of like making Minerva Monster and Beast of Whitehall, where it was pretty much just like put a camera in your hand and film whatever's there.
Right.
Like don't spend too much time on your setup. Don't spend, like your interviews are literally just smacking a tripod down in front of someone in their living room and shooting. The movies are becoming like more and more cinematic. I'm much more used to like trying to get that cinematic look, and Zach Palmisano is our director of photography, and he's like amazing at getting everything to look like a film, like a legit film, rather than a bunch of yahoos with like a couple $100.
Well, they look beautiful. Like that's one of the things that I love. Yeah, the direction of the photography.
Terror in the Skies is gorgeous, and I'll sit there during the day while I'm editing it, and I'll be like, I get excited to cut in B-roll because I haven't, like, I'm not the one shooting. I didn't shoot it. Zach shot it, or Santino shot it, and so like when I can, but that's kind of the point I'm making about On the Trail of too, is like I miss that aspect of it, and I know I can't do all angles of this anymore. Like I can't control every single aspect of it. That's why we brought on Zach.
Right.
But I miss being able to like be the guy that was filming it.
Yeah.
So, like On the Trail of has been a way for me to like, I guess, I was going to say flex those muscles, but that sounds really ridiculous. Can't wait to flex the record button muscles. But it's also like a way for us to start to STM was never supposed to be like every year there's going to be a movie, a Kickstarter. You know what's coming.
Right.
We know what's coming, blah, blah. We never wanted to do that. It was always supposed to be multimedia. So we wanted to do podcasts. We wanted to do books, and there's books coming.
Oh, that's cool.
We wanted to do movies. We wanted to do miniseries. We want to do live content. We want to have members only club where you can get into like a certain, like page on the website and take part in like Q&As and all that kind of stuff. So we always wanted to grow it way beyond where it is now.
Yeah.
Or I guess now we're starting to head in that direction, maybe like where it was like 2 years ago or a year ago.
Not just movies, but a lifestyle.
Right. Not just movies, but a lifestyle.
I like it.
Small town monsters.
When I first saw your guys' logo and the name, for me, it was just like, perfect.
Chris got jealous.
I got jealous. I was like, man, that's like what I was doing when I was
It's like,
a
I
kid.
love small towns and monsters.
I love small towns and monsters.
Together.
So do I.
The houses
grew up
with
in
the
Bolivar,
monster
man.
face.
Oh, you grew up in Bolivar?
Yeah, I grew up in Bolivar.
Well, isn't there a monster in Bolivar?
So Bolivar, that's what On the Trail of Bigfoot. It's a very Northeast Ohio
Oh, really?
series.
Okay.
Yeah, like we're premiering it at the Palace Theater on the release day.
Are there still tickets for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of our local listeners come to the premiere.
There's like 1,200 seats in there.
The Can Palace
I
Theater.
saw Third Eye Blind at that place.
That's cool.
I'm gonna see Tesla.
Love Third Eye
there.
Blind.
Are you?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
They brought him back?
Tesla.
Tesla's been kicking this whole time.
Is that a band?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
modern
I
day
didn't-
cowboy.
I didn't know.
You met Nikolai.
It's a very like Northeast Ohio centric. So it opens in Bolivar.
Oh, that's
with
cool.
me like talking about like what got me into it. There were like all these Bigfoot sightings that took place down there, but in one section on the south end of town, like not even town.
Oh,
it's
interesting. It's
outside of
very
town.
localized. The
Yeah,
outskirts.
it's on the outskirts of town, and this privately owned land. There was all this land that used to be owned by the Erie Coal Company or something like that. There was a dentist that lived down there off the road. I knew her through like my ex-wife. She had told her that her and her kids had been seeing Bigfoot on their property for like 20 years.
What?
And that her kids could follow it on horseback if they wanted to and all this stuff. And I'm like,
In Bolivar,
I was like,
Ohio.
this lady sounds like a whack job. And she's like, she's not. She's like, this is the thing. She's like a really well-established dentist. She's got her own practice. She's very successful. Her husband was the district attorney in Canton.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, holy crap. So I got to meet her and interview her, and she wasn't crazy. Like, at least not to like, in talking to her, she seemed perfectly sane.
Like
even
down
though
to earth.
The
Yeah.
things she was telling me seemed completely, like even by today's standards where I'm at, as far as like talking to people, witnesses and stuff, she's still, like some of the things she told me still seem like weird, but talking to her, she seems totally believable.
Head screwed on straight.
That's that's kind of the paradox, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, I mean, you guys are, I'm sure, varying degrees of skepticism on different, whatever
Wildly
you're covering.
skeptical.
Yeah, right. So how do you gel that? Like with eyewitness testimony where they seem sane and they seem very sure of what they saw, and it's an involved sighting or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you square that with...
Do you think that eyewitness testimony is like almost more
I'm
important?
I'm going to answer, and then Jason, because I'd be curious to hear his take on it as someone who kind of exists outside of all this.
that's a
But
good
like,
idea.
here's the thing: to me, whether or not any of it happens, completely irrelevant. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
whether or not there's a factual reality behind the Mothman of Point Pleasant, the Flatwoods Monster, the Bray Road Beast is completely irrelevant. To me, the most important thing is that people claim this happened to them, and those stories had a huge impact on the culture of the communities where they took place, on the lives of people where they took place in some cases. And because of people being so obsessed with whether or not there's a real Bray Road Beast, a lot of these stories are going to be and have been forgotten, but they're a piece of like the local history of those towns where they took place. So it's unfortunate to me that becomes like the thing that everyone focuses on, because like there's folklore and folktales, and like these are a part of that. So like now when we get into like, I don't know how to answer that either, because like there's only been two people I immediately can think of where we interviewed them, and like either during the interview or immediately after the interview, we were all like, they're gone, they're nuts. Like there's no way.
I think, I mean, I'm outside of Zach, maybe the most skeptical member of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that I do believe, so I kind of,
What are those, Jason?
I believe I was haunted by the Bell Witch.
Oh, the Bell Witch.
I believe this whole thing was a ploy to
Small Town Monsters Bell Witch coming in 2020.
Yes.
Nice.
I believe that this was all designed to bring me back to something I did to taunt the Bell Witch when I was a child.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm mostly kind of kidding about the Bell Witch, but I get these very specific chills, and there was somebody associated with us who had sort of a premonition.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Ooh.
This was sometime around last May. She went down, well, she hadn't gone down yet. She had a dream that she was down in the cave. And
Yeah. Okay.
all of us were
This
there.
gets way worse.
And the Bell Witch apparently turns to all of us and says, I'm going to be with all of you for a very long time.
Nope. Not what you want to hear. Yeah.
And then she said something along the
We're gonna
lines
have
of this.
This is going to be fun.
Oh, my gosh.
So after the dream, she calls, is there a gift shop or something down there? There's a contact down there at the gift shop, and she's having a conversation. Heather has never been down there. There aren't published images of certain aspects of the cave.
It was the It was the cabin, not the cave.
It was the cabin?
I think it was the cabin.
Well, anyway,
That's why it's creepy, because the cave is everywhere. You can see pictures of the cave anywhere online.
there were certain things where there aren't published images, and she was able, from her dream, to describe them specifically.
Wow.
The cabin.
That's freaky.
And this goes back to when I was a kid. I read a story about the Bell Witch, and I kept having these recurrent, just horrible, like nothing I've ever experienced, nightmares. And my dad said, well, the only way to get rid of a witch is to burn it. So draw a picture of her and burn it.
Wow, your dad said that? Wow, what an interesting.
Well, I think he was trying to help me.
Right, trying to help you get past it.
Move on.
Oh, right.
But in the meantime, you damned your soul.
Yeah, I drew a picture of the witch and burned it. And
now you're in the
Small
ring.
Town Monsters was this. I mean, I had never intended to work in film. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but now that
It brought
this
you
is
back.
coming to be, I feel like I've just been.
She's bringing you back to the.
I'm being summoned to the cave.
That's cool and terrifying.
So you guys are you going to go to the cave?
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. Actually, we'll be there if everything goes to plan. I'd like to be there this year, like this late fall, because I'm in love with Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, and I want to try to like naturally recapture that look. And what's funny is, like, I rewatched that movie recently, and I realized I had always thought of that movie as like tons of sets, like really elaborate sets. It's not at all. Like, there's a ton of, like, they built that town in the British countryside, and it's like all very there are sets, but for the most part it's natural, like, surroundings.
Yeah.
He just pulled that look from the way things look there naturally. So
Except for that crazy tree where they find
where the tree of life,
that was real.
Tree of death.
To draw it back to the original question, though.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Thank you, Jason.
when we're interviewing people, even me as a skeptic who kind of has a hard time connecting to a lot of it, you can tell when somebody's been legitimately moved by something and when somebody's really trying to grab a little bit of attention. And I think we've been fortunate that we really haven't encountered a whole lot of attention seekers, and we have, they don't really color the movie any certain way.
And the people we're getting are not people I gotta watch how I say that, actually, because that's not necessarily true. But we try to get people that you haven't seen in every single
It's always
documentary.
like waiting for a phone call.
Yeah, like John Frederickson, the animal control officer in Bray Road Beast, he never talked about that on camera. And we lucked out, and just I couldn't get. I just made it. I gave him money. That's a simple answer. It's like I gave him money, and it just happened to be that it was coinciding with the Kentucky Derby. And he wanted to bet on the horses.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it just lucked out.
He needed it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And so, like, I greased his palm to get him to say yes. And it just happened that because he wanted to bet on the horses, it was like right time, right place.
Because his testimony, I mean, that's one of the highlights of the film.
Well, we just had something like this happen the other day. There's this famous footage, somewhat famous, really controversial footage of what was claimed to be a thunderbird that was shot outside of Shelbyville, Illinois in 1977, immediately after the Lawndale flap of 1977. And there was this guy who was, his name was Texas John Huffer.
That's a great
And he
name.
was on a boat and he was rowing around this lake, Shelbyville Lake, with his camera. And he was out there to try to film footage of a thunderbird for a local TV affiliate that he was a cameraman for. He shot this footage of what more than likely is turkey vultures. Like there's a lot of argument between cryptozoologists and biologists and all this stuff over what it is. Ken Gerhard, who's like this kind of, he's a big like cryptid investigator. He 100% believes it's a thunderbird. Lauren Coleman, who's sort of the cryptozoologist, he's the one that owns the Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. He's always on like ancient aliens and mysteries at the museum and all that. He's convinced it's turkey vultures. So, but it's like a really important piece of history. Well, like for years, in fact, like during the interviews, people were telling us he's dead. And I'm like, okay, this guy's dead. So this is like my amazing detective work. I Google search the name Texas John Huffer. The first thing that pops up is a YouTube channel for Chief AJ. And the thing I know about Texas John Huffer is that he 100% believes himself to be a Native American. And he might have some like Cherokee blood, but like it's kind of like the joke in the cryptozoological world that he was like a wannabe Indian.
Yeah,
like they used to say that stuff. And so I look him up on his YouTube channel. I use his YouTube channel to somehow track him back to a website where he's selling slingshots that he made. And he's still alive. And right on the page, there's a phone number. So I call this just happened Saturday. I call the phone number on the page, and I get this phone number, or I get this guy answer the phone who runs his slingshot business. And he's like, oh, yeah, Chief AJ isn't here. Like, let me give you his number. Gives me his number. I text him. He tells me to text him. Don't call. I text him. I immediately get a text back. And I was like, John, I just wanted to know if I could license the, 10 seconds of your Thunderbird footage. I was like, you don't have to send me. I will go on YouTube, find the footage, pull the, crappy SD footage and use it in our video. And he responds like 2 seconds later. He's like, you give me $800 and I'll license it to you. And I'm like, all right, John, probably not, because $800 for 10 seconds of turkey vultures seems a little much. Right. But I immediately get a phone call, and here it's Chief AJ. So like he tells me, look, you give me X amount of dollars, I'll give you all the footage. I'll also give you the literal reels with the original footage that I shot and the camera I shot it with.
What?
And I was like, heck yeah. It's like, cool. So I paid it out. So now at my house, sitting on my table is the camera, the original 16 millimeter Ektachrome reels that he shot the footage. Those are going off tomorrow to get digitized. The camera that he shot it on, sitting right at my table. And it's like one of those things where like we tend to luck into this stuff a lot.
Right.
Like,
I was going to say, that's cool.
That's one of those.
Oh, yeah. We did a little bit of research.
Been telling me he's dead for years.
Well, was every other researcher who's wanted to get that footage or use it or get the original version just that lazy?
I think
they wouldn't Google?
I think a lot of people want to crank out content.
Right. They don't do the background stuff.
It's really easy for me to run to one of Lauren Coleman's books and just copy down what Lauren says.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't do that, because I think everyone in the field does that.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you put in a bare amount of research, you can end up with something like Minerva Monster, where we got the first ever interview with the family from Minerva who said they'd seen the Minerva Monster, or we got
Flatwoods
with Ed and Fred May. We got Fred's last interview he'll ever give about seeing the Flatwoods Monster. We got Ed May's only interview he's ever given, and that was just because we lucked into Fred.
Well, a big part of that was you knew that he was kind of a Civil War buff. And so is your dad. Yeah. So he drove his dad.
I took my dad with 5 hours down to Flatwoods, West Virginia.
Pal around with him and
that's great.
Ease him into the idea.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's like that's a huge part of what we do. Neither of this is all bringing it back to what you originally asked, though. Mm-hmm. Those dudes never wanted anything to do with being on camera, with like any kind of fame, with having their name known. They simply reported something scary or unusual that happened to them, and they got turned into a laughingstock because of it. You know, like the Minerva monster case is like the perfect example of that, because it was a family who called the police. That's it. That's all they did was call the police. And before they know it, they're having like kids drive up their driveway screaming, you know, Bigfoot lives here and stuff, throwing stuff at their house. And like the same thing happened, Terror in the Skies. We talked about, you know, we didn't get to interview him, but Marlon Lowe, who was the little boy that lived in Lawndale, who supposedly was picked up by the Thunderbird and carried. They make fun of him still. We went to Lawndale and we met a really nice guy in a Jazzy came real.
Yeah, he scooted on up to us.
Scooted right up to us. I thought he was going to tell us to get the F out of town. And like,
well, he was suspicious.
Yeah, he was. Because, I'm flying a drone.
Yeah,
drone over town. And
we show up places and we start filming and
pilot.
Hope that nobody asks us to stop. And I thought maybe that this was going to be the first time
where we get kicked out of town.
But I believe his quote was, "Just don't film my fat ass."
and we said something about Marlon Lowe and the bird, and he was like, "Oh, that never happened." He's like, "That whole he's drunk. That whole family's drunk."
Right, just throwing out anything.
And like it is sad, you know. Like one of the really like poignant. I've been in like a super emo phase for a while lately, and it's perfect time to be editing Terror in the Skies, because it's like it's a little bit more of like, Adam called it whimsical the other day, and I actually thought that might be a decent way to describe aspects of it. It's less horror, much less horror than our other movies.
More magical kind of horror.
I don't even know that I would say horror. Like that movie more than anything is like.
There's almost like an adventure to it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Well, the trailer looks great. The trailer does have that feel to it. A lot of the flying shots, the shadow of the Thunderbird over the mountainside.
The movie.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching, that's why that trailer I really want, and I love that trailer, by the way. I don't know how other people feel about it. I had this idea for a trailer, and this never happens. I have an idea for a trailer, and then I try to do it, and it just falls all apart once I get into the trailer. And that was a situation where I was sitting in my car, and I had this idea for a trailer, and I immediately called Brandon, who does all our music, and he's out in LA, and I was like, look, I am going to find a version of a song, like an old song that I can use for free, like some sort of public domain song about birds or wings or flying, and I need you to record an orchestral version of it. And he was like, heck yeah. So I came across Bye Bye Blackbird, which is actually like a song that my mom has always loved too. So like I cut the trailer to that song segueing into another song, and then Brandon cut in the Bye Bye Blackbird orchestral version. And like, I just wanted it to feel like something completely different from STM's other movies when it came out. Even though I do think there's aspects of it that feel like, that feel a lot like Mothman at Point Pleasant. Because it's much less about us filming creepy recreations and stuff like that, and much more about, here's the story, here's what happened. Let's let Chris Scalf and Santino really do the heavy lifting when it comes to the visuals, except for Zach's camera work. Like I said, it really is gorgeous. Everything, like, we like to bring in like a different style with each film. I don't know though, this one, I don't know like, it was inspired heavily, really, like visually, by Spielberg. Like when Zach and I talked about the look of the movie, we talked a lot about like crumbling, abandoned Midwest, because like that's what I picture when I think of like Illinois. I think of like abandoned towns that once were like full of people. And like I said, I've been in an emo phase, so like I've been editing these scenes to like the most depressing music, and like maybe it'll come through, maybe it won't, but like there is something really moving about that fact to me, the fact that this all comes back to why I do this, which is I grew up in a small town, and I know what small towns once were and what they are today, and how difficult it is for small towns to survive in the present economy and the world that we live in. So that I think will be much more reflected in this one.
Sounds like an emotional kind of touchstone for this one.
I cry. Yes. I cry a lot while I'm meditating.
I'm sad just hearing about it.
I really want to make people weep when they're watching our Thunderbird movie.
It's awesome. I was going to ask you, so I heard you mention this on another show. I think it was Into the Fray. Mm-hmm. And I'd never heard of this before. I mean, I'm into Bigfoot a fair amount, but I'd never heard of Area X.
Oh, yeah.
So what is Area X exactly? Ooh. And is that where you're working? That's where on the trail of Bigfoot?
So that, I'll start at the beginning with Area X. Area X, are you an Into the Fray fan?
I've come across it before, but not until just searching to see you guys on the shows. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's run by, so Shannon hosts that show.
Right, she's great on that.
Yeah, she's an old friend of ours, and like she's going to be the lead in On the Trail of UFOs.
Oh, cool.
So she's in On the Trail of Bigfoot too, but she's going to be like our lead. And like I told you, I hate being on camera.
Yeah.
So I'll put her in that. So
nice. So she'll do all the hosting.
She'll be instead of me. What was I talking about before we got in?
I had asked you about Area X.
Yeah,
because I'd heard her mention that.
Area X. So,
well, we hope you guys have been enjoying this interview so far. We want to take a quick break here and just thank our new patrons that we've got. We got some stingers to play. We've got the beloved Lauren and the much envied Mitch
McConnell.
That is not his last name. Cocaine Mitch.
Cocaine Mitch.
Cocaine Mitch. We'll play the stinger for Mitch. This is, John usually does the amazing stingers with the badass sound effects and everything.
They're pretty ridiculous, though.
But they're great. But Chris and I don't know how to do that. We know how to kind of make.
We know how to do it.
Well, we know how to make music. Yeah, we're going for that kind of like theme song of like an '80s action hero. Like
I feel like you should play it, then you can talk about it.
All right, just play it. Just roll it.
Somebody get Mitch on the line. Mitch! We need a hero. Mitch! Legend of the Hog. Mitch! A natural born warrior. Mitch! He's a hero in the hole.
What was the last part?
I coughed and didn't finish. He's a hero in the hole. We had like
a hero in the hole?
Yeah. We had a whole verse with like lyrics and stuff. And
yeah, they were great lyrics.
It's a good song.
That's right.
I thought you were saying bitch.
Bitch.
I like the song though. That's cool.
We're going for that. For inspiration, we actually watched Queen do the recording.
The Flash Gordon.
Flash.
Oh, okay.
And a little higher octave.
Yeah. They performed a little better than we did. But Chris had some great lines like he takes the dragons at night.
Yes, he takes the dragons at night. I was totally ad-libbing and they were pretty great.
It was great. We had some great stuff, but we just kept the last one. Hero of the Hole.
No, it was good. Great job, guys.
Well, great job, Mitch. Thanks for being a patron.
Yes, Mitch, thank you. We hope you liked your stinger.
Yeah, and mine is actually inspired by Terror in the Skies, the upcoming Small Town Monsters release. Here's that.
Hey, Lauren, I'm hanging out on this giant bird right now, but I just wanted to thank you for being a patron and supporting Believeful.
Let you fly away. Thank you, Lauren.
Good. Thanks, Lauren.
That was a special message. I like how you said patron.
Did I say patron? Well, I was like running back and forth on the microphone too. So I imagine like being on a pterodactyl and it was just taking me around.
I got that. Like he's flying around and then off and away you go. That was great.
That's awesome. Well, we hope you guys liked your stingers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren and Mitch. We really appreciate your support. If anybody else out there wants to support us, go to beliefhole.com and click on the Patreon button at the top. And you too can get your own stinger and support us for the price of a cup of coffee.
We have some Facebook recommendations too,
right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, two Facebook recommendations I want to give shout-outs to.
Cassandra
K. And I won't say the last name because I guess we don't do that here, but
sometimes we do. Much kisses to Cassandra.
Much kisses.
And her name was Cassandra.
Is that a song?
It's from Wayne's World.
Oh, how did I not know that?
And Brian K., our good friend Brian, he's come up on the episode today with we talked about earlier. Brian K., thank you for your Facebook recommendation. It means the world to us.
Absolutely. Oh, and I did want to say there's an iTunes review that we had in January I wanted to mention just because of their username. Thank you, Flying Baloney or Bologna. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but they left us a sweet review on iTunes. So thank you for that. Because when you guys leave reviews on iTunes or wherever you leave them, it does help us. So
yeah, anytime you want to leave a review, give us a rating, share us.
Strap your friends into a chair and make them listen until they like it.
That's also a useful way to get us
mind control
in their heads.
Oh, and again, last thing I want to say is the SpeakPipe It's still open on the and even you could do what Terry did, and you could just send us a recording if you don't want to go through our site and leave a message that way.
It actually works better if you want to record
it
on your own and send it over.
Yeah, SpeakPipe's easy for people who don't have any kind of equipment. You can just record right into your phone or right on your computer. We have a SpeakPipe button on our website, and you can leave us a message. I think it's 90 seconds, but if you run out of time, just leave us another one. We'll patch them together. So anyways, thank you guys so much for supporting us in all those different ways. We love you. Keep doing it because we want to be here for you for the long haul. So with that said, let's dive back into the Small Town Monsters Part 2. Do it.
Area X. So one of the reasons I'm so into the Bigfoot subject is there's a podcast called The Bigfoot Show. And it's still out there. Like, you can still go listen to episodes of it. But it was hosted by these 4 guys, all very rational, humorous. 2 of them were wildly skeptical, like extremely skeptical. Even Brian, the host, was skeptical. Scott Harriet, who is also one of the hosts, is like, he was a comedian. He's like one of the funniest people I know that's into Bigfoot. But Brian was like the reason I really liked the show. And Brian was this like really rational, sane individual who had joined this group called the North American Wood Ape Conservancy and was looking for Bigfoot in southeastern Oklahoma. And he went from being like fairly skeptical to like a pretty much I hate using the word believer.
Right.
Even though our show's called Believable.
It's somewhat ironic.
But when it comes to Bigfoot, like, I just have issues with it. Like, it's there's so many like religious connotations to belief. And I believe like when it comes to things like this, it's either like it's there or it's not. Like, you can believe something's there. That doesn't mean it's going to be there.
I hate the word believe too.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's too. In our name, it's sort of, I hate
the word whole. So
we just combine it together. It's like it's got a kind of a gross connotation too.
Yeah,
it sounds dirty. But no, we're in some I think somewhat inebriated debate. And we were visiting John in Austin before we started the show, and we were just talking about doing a podcast. And during the conversation, belief hole came up because the idea was you get sucked into these belief holes where you find yourself trying to convince yourself of certain things.
I think there's actually something to that too, where there's like a cyclical thing to the whole paranormal world, where like any one of these given subjects, when you initially get into it, you're either completely skeptical or you're completely naive and you believe everything. And that's like when I got into Bigfoot, I was 100% this is all real, because I never realized that there were like these reports from the 1800s of like wild men and apes in Ohio, and they sound exactly like Bigfoots, and so to me that's like, okay, well then they got to be like, these things exist. And then over time I grew more and more skeptical.
Right. Yeah.
Which brings us back to Area X. So like last year I got invited, not invited, but I asked to go to this place where Brian's been going, the host of that Bigfoot show, where Brian's been going for years. And he, on that show, he documented all this activity that had taken place in Area X. My favorite incident was this, what they called the Rain of Rocks, which was for like 2 hours. They were in this cabin and there was just rocks like falling on the cabin. And they had audio from it, so I wasn't just having to hear like someone's story about some crazy incident. It was literal rocks. So he seemed so sane and rational that it made me kind of re-examine my burgeoning skepticism around the whole topic. But over time, like up until I went into Area X last June. When I went in, I was at 30% that Bigfoot exists. Like 30,
going low,
30%, and going lower quick. Like even on the drive in, we were getting more and more skeptical on the drive into Area X. So Area X is a location deep in the Ouachita Mountains, and the Ouachita Mountains is like an inland rainforest east of the Rockies. It's like the only ecosystem like that east of the Rockies. It's the only place you're going to find like this. Thunderstorms will form over you while there's a completely clear sky over the rest of the valley, or over the mountains or whatever. So you're down in this valley. So for years they've been going in there. They've been trying to kill, the NAWAC is trying to kill a Bigfoot. They want to get a body and bring it out, prove it to science. That's their number one objective. It is unlike any other Bigfoot group. It's not any other Bigfoot group. The Olympic Project is also very legit. and the guys, and there's a lot of like scientists and biologists involved in that as well. But the NAWAC is headed up by a biologist. There's a lot of military personnel and people that worked in the military their whole lives, and guys that are scientists and doctors, very intelligent
serious people.
Yeah. And they've almost all seen something in X.
Wow.
Like all of them have had, in most cases, multiple sightings. And that's always something that's drawn red flags for me, is people who see multiple things.
Right.
So I've been trying to get in there to make a documentary about it. Finally, when I decided I was going to do On the Trail of Bigfoot, I knew I wanted to do an episode where I went into X and I shot everything that happened for however many days. So they okayed it. They wanted me to be in there for a week. I couldn't. I did 2.5 days. I'm so thankful I only did 2.5 days.
There's a black widow in your tent.
There was a black widow as soon as I got out of my car. We got out of the truck, and the first thing I saw was a black widow on a leaf.
Welcome.
And then that night, a black widow like ninja dropped into our tent. Like, just the guy was opened the tent door flap to go to the bathroom, and it like leaped in.
That's terrifying.
And Area X sits 2.5 hours off of a paved road. It's only a 9-mile drive. It's 9 miles back there.
Oh, wow.
But it takes 2.5 hours to travel. You go down the side of this mountain. It's the most rugged road I've ever been on. It's essentially just a washout. Like when there's rain or floods, it just goes down here.
Clears some area.
And that's what you're driving.
Right.
And you have to take either an ATV or a 4-wheel drive truck jacked up. Like, you're not going to get down. And even then, the jacked up 4-wheel drive truck we drove in on was scraping bottom in some spots.
Wow.
So it's the worst road I've ever been on. There's a guy in the NAWAC who's in British Special Forces, Richard Sargent. He told me it's the worst road he's been on outside of the Congo. So it's like, it's nasty.
So this is a very remote location then, for sure.
Yeah, it's remote, and it's surrounded by privately owned land.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't like a state forest, or like, I just don't know how to compare it to anything here in Ohio, but it's like the Pacific Northwest, but it's in Oklahoma. You know, it's some of the most dense forest I've ever seen. You know how, I don't know if you guys have been to Salt Fork, but the undergrowth in Salt Fork is so thick in some spots you can't see like 5 feet beyond the trail. That's what it's like there, like almost everywhere. And you'll see that like in the episode, like you'll really get a sense for like how insanely claustrophobic it is in there. So we went in for 2.5 days, and in that 2.5 days, it was almost constant like weird activity happening. Unlike everywhere else where you're like trying to tune in so you can pick up on stuff, and there you tune out. Like you have to tune it out, because otherwise every single thing that happens becomes Bigfoot to you.
Right.
And it might not be. Like, there's probably like 95% of what happened in there is somehow explainable. But some of the stuff you can't explain that happened to us, like something threw rocks at a building and let out a gibbon laugh, and this gibbon laughter that sounded like we were in a primate enclosure at a zoo.
Wow.
There was a whoop that sounded like a John Wayne Indian, like a Native American John Wayne movie. It sounded like an Apache war whoop.
Were you able to capture that stuff when you were there?
So what we did capture is actually way cooler than that. What we did capture was
live Bigfoot.
Very clear a live Bigfoot, right? No. What we did capture was eye shine on this hill looking at us.
Oh,
that we
cool.
caught the one. So we're sitting down, and so what they like to do is at night they don't light it. There's no fire. You sit in complete darkness, and you just talk, and like you have fun or whatever. Like you're hanging out, trying not to die from the stifling heat. We're sitting down in there. It's late at night, and there's no light. Like, you can look straight up overhead, and apparently I just found this out the other day, but it was a waxing crescent moon. So the moonlight was only like 20%. There's basically no moon. So the only light is the stars overhead. And the problem is the leaf canopy is so thick, you can't really see the stars except through some cracks in the leaves, you know? So there's a little bit of starlight up in the sky, and that's it. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. So I'm sitting there, and I'm looking off to my left, and I can see these two green points of light. And I asked one of the guys, it was like, how high up is that hill? Because it was on this hill beside the camp. And he's like, like 75 yards. And I was like, well, there's no way. Because I'm looking halfway up this hill. And I was like, are there lights up on the hill? Because I'm like seeing two lights, two.
Right in the middle of nowhere.
It reminded me of one night my dad and I went out in Zor. And we came up out of the wetlands and shone our light up on this hill because I had noticed something up there. And it hit these 3 deer. And when it did, the first thing you actually saw was eye shine. It was the creepiest, this green eye shine out in the middle of the woods. It was the scariest thing I ever saw until I realized what it was. It was like that, except there was no light. Like, there's no light. And these eyes are up on this hill. These lights are up on this hill. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, there's like 2 lights looking. There's 2 lights right there. And Daryl gets up, Daryl Collier, who's like the focus of that episode, kind of him and Brian, gets up and comes over and he's like, where are you looking? So like, it's pitch black, keep in mind, so I can't like point. It's like I took his head and I like tilted him like right
intimate.
Yeah, like right there. And as soon as I did, he's like, oh yeah, there's 2 eyes. Like he saw it, so he sees it. And so I get out, like my camera, obviously, and I'm shooting with my night vision camera up on the hill. And we're looking at this thing, and for whatever reason, Brian Brown stands up, flips on his flashlight, and starts to walk over with it. And as soon as he started shining up, the eyes took off, but they didn't take off like turn, or the eyes didn't just go away or turn around. They moved sideways across the hill while still staring at us. So like we're seeing these lights go sideways across this hill. And so what I caught on night vision, you've seen the footage, right? Mm-hmm. And it's in the footage. It's actually in the trailer. For a second, you can, the opening like 10 seconds of the trailer, actually, the eyes watching us. So you can see these eyes. Like, what's really weird is like the more we've done with the footage, like brightening it and stuff, it almost seems to be like the eyes are reflecting off the face. So it's to the point now where like when I really boost that exposure, it almost, you can make out a face expression. Not an expression, but like a face shape, which you have to be really careful because like there's so many artifacts, and it's a really crappy night vision camera. So pixels are going to do all kinds of weird things. Right. All I know is that there's a shot, for a brief second, I pulled the IR torch off of it and I shined it in another direction. And in that moment, there's pitch black, except for these 2 eyes. You still see the eyes right there.
So what made you think when you saw this that it was something unusual and not like a deer or like a fox or something?
So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was the fact that there's no light.
Right. It would be self-illuminated, right? Okay, duh. Yeah, there's nothing reflecting. Yeah, that makes sense.
And this is something that is going to become a sticking point with me and the NAWAC, because I've already had arguments. They wanted me to pull out, I had narration in there where I said the eyes seem to be self-illuminated.
Oh, they didn't like that.
They hate that.
Because they want it to be very natural.
They want it to be scientific, and I totally get it. And I think there's probably some sort of natural scientific explanation.
It could be bioluminescence.
Right? Sure, or it could be anything. But like, we don't even know that there's a ape out there, let alone how they function or how their eyes function. So like, all I know is I'm looking at 2 lights where there's no other, there's nothing to reflect that.
Right.
There's no eye shine. It's not eye shine like we know it. Now, that's not to say it couldn't be another type of eye shine. Someone pointed out, like, maybe it's the fact that like they showed an ape face next to a deer face and like how the eyes sit back in. Like, it could just be that they're closer to the surface and they reflect it, or something. Like they could reflect some of the light from something. I don't know. But all I know is in that moment that was, like, to me, what we were looking at was not a deer. The only other thing I thought might be a believable sort of thing would be like a mountain lion.
Yeah.
Again, like, I don't know what the eyes would have been reflecting.
It definitely seems predator-esque, the way it moved.
Kept its eyes.
If it was a deer, it would have taken off.
So those guys, see, I was the one saying, oh, this isn't a ape. This is, like, I'm saying that it could have been a deer. Brian's like, no, you're looking at an ape. Like, this is their behavior. Like, they come and watch us. This is what they do. And then the next night is when 2:30 a.m. I'm trying to sleep. I had the worst headache I've had in years. I get to leave and the next morning go home. It's 2:30. I'm just starting to fall asleep, and this rock smashes into the roof of what they call the hooch, which is like a metal outbuilding. It smashes into the top of it, and then there's this immediate, like, deep, humanistic, like, whoop.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then that's followed by like this weird gibbon laugh, like a gibbon laughing in a zoo, and that was the closest thing we could come to. And all I could think about for the next, and I mean, even today, I still play that sound in my head over and over, because you're like, is there something else? Because everyone you talk to, that you tell this to, that isn't like a Bigfoot person, wants to tell you,
you're at a fox
it's a
or
fox,
something. Yeah.
it's a mountain lion, it's a mating call from a mountain lion. it's an owl. You know, like
Cats.
we heard owls that whole weekend. We know what owls, you know, like I know what a bobcat sounds like. And I'm not saying I'm a skilled outdoorsman, but I am telling you the closest thing that we could get to with that laugh was a gibbon. But the laugh to me wasn't even, that was nothing compared to the whoop. Because like the whoop was so, it sounded like a person standing 30, 40 yards from our tent, just letting out this like jubilant, excited because it had nailed that roof. And that was like the next day, the entire conversation on the drive home was no longer about like how this group's getting hoaxed. Now it's about like, if these things exist, how do they live? What is their behavior like? What are the personalities like? What do you think that one that did that is like? I mean, they're in my head now, they're real animals.
Yeah, right. Just from that one experience.
I'm not saying I'm like 100% they exist. I'm like 80% now.
Yeah, well, that's a big bump.
But that one thing was like enough to make me think about the whole subject in a completely different way.
Yeah,
and like that changed the modus operandi for On the Trail of Bigfoot too. Because On the Trail of Bigfoot was going to be like retell the subject of Bigfoot, basically, like the history of the subject. And now it's more about maybe you'll come away from it a complete skeptic. I actually showed it to someone who was a believer and then watched it and came away a skeptic.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't really care if you're a believer or a skeptic. I just want you to think about the subject in a way you never have before, which is hopefully in a much more realistic manner than what you'd been doing before.
Right.
Because like I still think most people are thinking about Bigfoot like there's one Bigfoot wandering
right.
around
One
the world. Yeah,
a
one
Bigfoot
dude.
like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
How's he still alive? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And I just want people to think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's the series explores all the different facets of the subject. So you get that like natural animal kind of viewpoint, but you also get like Stan Gordon talking about portals and all the weird stuff.
I just have a question about, I'm wondering if you have a point out of all the things you've done where you were like the most freaked out. Has there been anything that's just like scared you in a way that stayed with you?
Is that my nose whistling? See, this is why I shouldn't
scary.
wear headphones. That might be the most. I know for me, it was probably. It was, you know what? It was actually, I think it was while we were filming On the Trail of Bigfoot, but it wasn't in Oklahoma. I was never, if I have a camera in my hands, I'm good usually.
Right, you feel protected.
Yeah, I can do.
No one
I
ever
can
gets hurt on camera.
No.
Like.
But I think that when we were filming On the Trail of Bigfoot, we were in Adams County with Shannon LeGros, and we were up on the side of this mountain. In Adams County, you're right on the border with Kentucky, so it's much more like Kentucky than Ohio. There's mountains, and we're up on the side of this mountain by this old graveyard, pitch black, darker than Oklahoma, than Area X. We're up on the side of this mountain by this graveyard, and one of the guys does a call, like a Bigfoot call, and instead of like a Bigfoot echoing back, a coyote echoed back across the valley. And as soon as it echoed back, other coyotes started picking it up, and it ringed around the mountain like 360, like it's going the whole way around, and it went on for over a minute. And it was just one coyote picking it up after the next. And it was the creepiest thing I've ever heard, because it was at one point, like during the middle of this call, Adam looks at me and goes, "Are those sirens?" Because you were hearing, because like it's
that's crazy.
And that was because
it's not a paranormal thing. But.
It's nothing paranormal, but like I was like, if there's that many coyote here and they come up here, we're dead. We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
We're gonna get at least ripped up.
It's creepy to think that like they were all there before he made the noise, and then he makes it, and then you get the roll call.
Yeah, and that's the only time that we've been filming where I started walking towards I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, you guys finish the shot. I'm gonna just be slinking back here.
I don't know about you.
Coyote Army's coming.
Yeah, for me, it's always been about
Falk.
The actual elements, and specifically in Falk.
Yeah, that was the scary.
The Boggy Creek?
Like Black Widows and such.
Well, yeah, the very first day I'd ever been a part of any Small Town Monsters production, I almost stepped on a cottonmouth snake.
Yeah, that's true. He did.
Yikes. We unexpectedly
stepped over it. He walked over it, didn't realize it happened. I was walking behind him, I was like, there's a snake. And then this guy was like, that's a cottonmouth.
And it was a baby. And babies don't know how to regulate their poison output.
Oh, man.
So it would have just emptied into me. And at least would have gone to the hospital.
Yeah.
The bell witch was like, damn it, I almost got him.
Also, unexpectedly, very first day of shooting Boggy, got access to the Crabtree property. And the area where the sighting was a thin strip of land between two large ponds. And there were alligators splashing around. And
no thanks.
I wasn't prepared for any of it. So that was...
What an adventure.
I remember looking at Seth going, do we really have to?
I waded into like, I'm not brave, but there is something like stupid in my head that if I have a camera in my hands and I'm filming, I waded into that water with boots on and just stood in there like filming later. And like, we went down the Sulphur River the next night in a boat, this tiny boat. It was me and Brandon and Aaron Gascon and then this, what's that dude's name? John Attaway. John Attaway.
Yeah.
So John's like a legit like Marine and all this. Just like super outdoorsman. It's not scared of anything. He's like telling me we're like going down these creepy rivers with like alligators and snakes everywhere. And he was telling me that like every time he goes overseas, he just wants to come home. He's like, it's heaven here. Which is just like everything wants to kill you here.
Yeah, we were in the national parks. We were warned about the warthog infestation.
Yeah, those things are nasty.
Feral pit bulls.
People were hunting them too, so there were constant gunshots going off.
Packs of feral pit bulls.
I heard about a woman who was eaten by her, maybe it was her pit bulls. She had 2 pets, I think.
I ruined a time-lapse shot because of being afraid of the pit bulls.
Yeah.
Because I got back in the car and shook the camera.
The whole camera. The camera's sitting on top of the car.
There weren't any visible pit bulls, by the way. I was just scared.
They were in your head.
Fire ants, chiggers, fire ants. Ticks, snakes. I mean,
we filmed a Japanese reality show in Point Pleasant.
Oh, that was,
and that we had to inspect for ticks. And like while we were filming,
they like hired you guys to film.
That was our
Japanese...
weird. I think
those are amazing shows. The reality
unequivocally, that is our weirdest. The weirdest week of my life.
We were with like a Japanese commando. Or a guy portraying a Japanese commando.
Harada. He's not a commando. My kid was 3 weeks old. My wife and I and the kid went down to Point Pleasant, and my wife and Tommy stayed in this hotel while I was out in the woods for like 14 hours every night filming a Japanese reality show.
Wow.
With we got Jason, Aaron Gascon, Brandon. That was it, right?
I think so.
And then their crew, and we would go out and like hunt for Mothman.
And during one,
I almost got in multiple fistfights.
I want to hear that story, the fistfight story.
Well, this is a different.
That's with the producer, right?
Yeah,
a very angry man.
They call it, so like my nickname is OMB, Old Man Breedlove, because I can be real grouchy.
Curmudgeon-y.
Yeah.
There was a scene where we had to be quiet because he was being interviewed, and I lifted up my shirt and noticed that, and it's pitch black, and there's just a tick crawling on me. And if I weren't on film, I would have started screaming.
Ticks are nasty.
We would get back to the hotel room and pull them off. Like it wasn't like there was a couple. It was, you would get back and it was like, how many are on me today?
Meanwhile, the Japanese crew were in like
t-shirts,
shorts, sleeveless t-shirts,
nothing,
in sleeping bags without being in the tent, just relaxing.
You could look at a blade of grass and see the ticks crawling on it. It was the craziest. It was the craziest thing.
It was right after a really mild winter, so they were everywhere.
That was the weirdest. That period of time was some of the most surreal because we shot that show, and then the next weekend we went to film Invasion on Chestnut Ridge. And while we were filming Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, Mothman in Point Pleasant came out, and within the first like 4 hours had become like one of the best-selling movies on Amazon.
That's awesome.
We haven't had this experience since.
This for me has always just been like Seth, Zach, and I met hanging out in diners talking about making movies. And it wasn't until that weekend that I realized that we were kind of doing the thing and people were paying attention, because it was just a hobby to me at that point. I was just having fun with my friends, and
then we had like it literally it was selling better than Logan and Rogue One.
Wow,
what was out at that time? It was ahead of every, and it happened so fast. Like we were tracking it because we're all together in this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's like people are refreshing it every couple of minutes to tell us like where it's at. Oh, like we just, we hit 50 on the horror list within the first like 5 minutes.
That's awesome.
And then it was like, oh, we're at number 1 on the horror list in the first like hour.
Wow.
And then it started rising up the overall list, which is like every movie on Amazon. And then it topped out at like what, 7 or 6?
I honestly don't remember.
I mean, it was right below the movies you would expect to be the big ones.
That's
like
insane.
the big Hollywood blockbusters.
Probably felt like you hit the lottery or something.
Yeah, we didn't know what to expect, and we're all like, "Oh, it's just gonna be like I thought we were gonna make millions,
right?
Because you don't know, like we had no idea, like if a movie hits something like, in that you don't know what the money is that you should be expecting.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about that is, I've been doing this now. I was doing it for a year and a half before that, and I guess a year and a half or more since. And we haven't duplicated, not only have we not duplicated that, but I haven't seen another movie that was made for 10 grand, that was self-distributed, hit the top 10.
Yeah.
Like overall best-selling movies on Amazon, let alone like a movie made for 10 grand by a bunch of guys in the, a bunch of buddies in the woods. Like I just don't think that stuff happens. Like,
yeah, like all those stars had to align for some reason.
Well, and I think it just shows the people are starved for good, well done content with this kind of topic. Especially Mothman is a very popular thing.
It really was like there was a right place, right time thing with that movie too. It was the 15-year anniversary of the Mothman Prophecies movie. It was the 50-year anniversary of the bridge collapse. And the Chicago Mothman flap had just kicked off and was all over major media.
Yeah.
So it was
we
like those
actually
three
got
things.
accused of staging that.
We were accused of jump starting the whole
flap, the Chicago flap. That's crazy.
Yeah, we were contacted again during the Making of Bray Road Beast by someone trying to accuse us of that. A TV station out of Milwaukee, news station.
Wow, that's so
funny. We were accused multiple times by people that said we were trying to hoax that to get attention on our movie.
That's so crazy.
And I think that you could probably find articles. There were a few articles in that show.
But I mean, did you though?
Yeah.
Hardly any questions.
That was a disclaimer. That was a joke.
Right. We did not. I was going to say just because you mentioned Rare Beast, and I wanted to mention it. I guess we kind of touched on it, but two things. One, to say again for anyone listening out there in the world, the Beast of Bray Road, or the Bray Road Beast, the effects in that, I know we talked about this before, and the quality of the film and everything. Because my thing, like of all the paranormal cryptids and all the phenomena out there, for some reason I'm fascinated with like the Dogman subject, werewolves and that kind of thing. And just the reenactments alone, like I remember seeing that scene where the beast is on the side of the road eating roadkill. And I remember seeing that on a Monster Quest, I think it was, on the Travel Channel or something. And it was just like a guy in a suit kind of lumbers up, and it's like half like computer generated, half like he kind of waddles away. But it's like the least scary thing I've ever seen in my life.
Least convincing, yeah.
And then seeing your movie, like, was the first time I think that I can remember that I've seen a documentary about a paranormal cryptid that was scary. Like, just the way that you guys did it was done so tastefully. It's like you believed in what you wanted to scare yourself when you made it. That's how the feeling I got from it.
That makes me really pumped.
I knew it was going to.
That was me in the suit.
That's awesome.
And I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And I think a lot of that is, Seth, Zach, and Santino were there kind of coaching me through the movements. So that was entirely your guys' design.
Yeah, that was the other thing about that is like I got an email last week from a guy that works for some sort of effects house wanting to know who made our suit, because they're making a movie, and he's like, it reminded me of like Dog Soldiers, which is one of my
I've never seen that. I've seen the cover
movie so much. I think it's on Prime right now.
Okay, check that out.
Yeah, do it. It's great. It's like it's kind of like Night of the Living Dead in the fact that they hole up in this house and then it gets attacked by werewolves.
Right. Awesome. Familiar story.
It's Rio Bravo. It's Rio Bravo meets American Werewolf in London. So anyway, that's a $5 werewolf mask.
Really?
Oh yeah. And the bodysuit was made by Santino, and that cost the entire werewolf suit cost $35. And then we used reflective tape for eyes. So the actual like eye shine is
reflection.
It's real eye shine. You're seeing a reflection rather than. So that part really works. Like, I remember when we were shooting that, we were actually creeped out by like what we were.
So much better than CG.
Give extra quality.
There's just something about it that was, and even not even using lights to have it be something that's, like natural light almost that's reflecting back, I think really gave it a lot of life. But yeah, that was $35 to make that suit. The other like effect sequence I'm really proud of, or even though it's very hokey, is our Flatwoods monster, because he was 15 feet tall and weighed almost 700 pounds.
Oh my God. I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay.
That's the boggy.
We built a literal Flatwoods monster.
That's awesome. Do you still have it?
Yeah, it's sitting in Dalton. I can take you guys there right now.
Dalton?
It's sitting right outside of my sister's.
It almost crushed the creator during filming.
It did.
Like Lucifer.
It almost fell over.
How tall is it? 15 feet?
It's 15
that
feet
horse.
tall.
That's the horse, Lucifer. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, that was the Denver airport, that big terrifying blue horse with the big ball sack that hangs down from underneath.
What was that thing?
I sent that to you. That's because I didn't
that?
know it had balls. It's that horse from the Denver airport that's like all blue with the glowing, burning red eyes.
Yeah.
They killed its creator. Like
that was
it fell off.
Okay, yeah. Why? So where'd you get that shot from?
I just image searched Lucifer, and one of them was the undercarriage.
The
Have
sack.
you guys ever
Veiny?
listened to the Boogie Monster podcast?
No.
Have you ever heard of Kyle Kinane, comedian? It's him and another comedian named Dave Stone, and they have a whole episode about the Denver airport.
Dude, the
awesome.
Denver airport is some strange.
Yeah, it's on our to-do
shit.
list for sure.
Some creepy New World Order.
Like hide the president underneath the airport stuff.
I was so excited to fly into there a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Did they still have the murals up when you went?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I flew in after they.
There was something about. I went there in
artwork is
2015, I think I was there. Yeah.
Okay.
They've since, like, I've seen articles now, they've like welcomed the whole like
They
mythology
turned it into a
around it.
joke
So now
now.
they have like exhibits where it's like, here are the gargoyles that we
No, it
keep
says
to-
behind here we're either remodeling for a beautiful new cafe or the Illuminati are housing their baby children to sap the adrenochrome or whatever.
adopted it.
Yeah. I like just getting back to the suit thing. I think like a couple years ago, or maybe even when we were making Bray Road, we kept coming back to like how do we pull off that movie, because we were out of money for really, like I couldn't put more money toward a suit. We'd already blown our effects budget. Last year, actually when Invasion on Chestnut Ridge came out, we got contacted by Adam Wingard, who made the Blair Witch Project movie a couple years ago.
So we just talked about that.
The guy that's directing the King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Oh, crazy.
He watched Invasion on Chestnut Ridge and became like a big STM fan.
That's awesome.
And crazily enough, like I was watching something where Adam Wingard was talking about like embracing your low budget. Like don't try to shy away from it. Don't try to overshoot, what you've got. Just embrace what you've got and make it work for what you're doing. And I was like, you know what, like we got like, let's say we have $100. Let's just make it work for $100. Yeah. And that was like the scene where the mouth of the monster's munching on the guts. That's like Santino's he's puppeting the head.
That's like old school effects,
Yeah, I mean, like
movies.
that whole sequence is just that kind of stuff. So like we're trying to do that more and more. It
does make it more authentic. I mean, especially compared to CGI, it just ruins a lot of like the the old puppets and stuff that used to be used in film. Were just there was like a nostalgia and a authentic.
There's a realness to it.
If we can pull it off, like that's what we like. Terror in the Skies is entirely computer generated.
Yeah, it kind of has to be, I think.
Yeah, but if we can do something like Bray Road, like that's the kind of stuff I want to do.
Yeah. But yeah, I love the way that you guys have been doing it. It feels like there's no...
Thanks.
Yeah, like I was saying before, just the stuff you see on TV, the network stuff's like, let's get some, cut some corners here, get some cheap CG.
We got contacted to that point. We got contacted last month by Travel Channel, by a production company making a series. It's straight up a ripoff of us.
Yeah, right.
Like seriously, this happens constantly. By the way, like someone asked me the other day, like if we're gonna sign a network deal, and I'm like, we get contacted constantly.
Right.
I've ignored more emails from networks than I've responded to. Like we get in the last month we've gotten probably 10, and like they're just production companies that are like, we want to make we want to make a show, but they don't. Like what they want to do is take what we're doing, make a bunch of money off of it, steal it from us essentially, and then completely ruin it. Yeah, change it. But like this, it's hilarious. Their show is called right now, like the production. Oh, probably shouldn't say that, huh? I better be careful about.
We'll bleep it out. Yeah,
things.
tell us. We'll bleep
I
it.
didn't sign anything though. What are they going to do?
Yeah,
it's called like Monster Mysteries. I think.
yeah.
So it's just essentially
generic.
what we do.
Yeah.
And
It's like
Except
Middle
a
America
way worse
monster.
name.
yeah, they wanted to license our recreation footage.
Wow.
For their thing. Yeah,
That's
no,
crazy.
And I'm like, sure. And I quoted them the price that I knew I would have to pay if I went and I licensed footage.
Right.
And this woman calls me. Boy, I'm really throwing this away, but that's okay. This woman calls me that like runs their production company and tried to like impress me with the fact that she's in Hollywood.
Oh my God.
Like she's like, I'm looking out my window right now. It's sunny. And I'm like, great.
Congratulations.
Great.
At least 4
Congratulations.
floors
I'm
up.
in the middle of the polar vortex.
But
Like
then,
what?
like beyond that, these shows will contact us and say, "Hey, can we
use your witnesses?
footage?" We've got a Facebook community.
We have a Facebook community
that
group.
They'll join and they'll say, "Hey, we're here with the Travel Channel. We're looking for witnesses."
Just trying to grab
They
them.
also not troll, but they watch what we're doing, who we're talking to. They go after those same people immediately after the movies come out.
Basically, they want to just piggyback off all your
you
work.
can watch. You'll
like
watch
with the barn in
Lee's
Bray Road.
Ranch.
Yeah,
Lee's Ranch. Lee had never been on anything to my knowledge before Bray Road Beast, and he's been on 2 since we came out.
Wow. Of course, yeah.
And that just came out in October.
That's crazy.
in the pictures I saw, they were filming in the same exact
He's been
spots.
shooting. Yeah,
dicks.
I think only one of them's actually come out, but he shot another one that's like in the exact same spot, like sitting in the exact same. I'm like, come on. But here's what's funny to me is like I don't know what kind of numbers they're getting. All right, but we are getting close to the point where I could be like, we're not there yet, and I understand like some of these shows get millions of views, but STM is on Amazon. We are at millions of views.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the point where I don't even understand why we would go to a network unless they're really ponying up.
Right.
And really, like, I don't think we're in this necessarily to make like millions of dollars. We like doing what we do, and we like doing it independently.
Yeah, the autonomy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think any of us expected to be at this point already.
No.
Yeah.
Less than 4. Well, just over 4 years in. I mean,
Is there a restroom I can sneak?
Yeah,
out?
absolutely. Right? It's just go around the bookshelves, and then there's like a trap door, and you go down there, and then there's like
Is this a break, or are we going to continue?
Yeah, you guys want to take a break?
Yeah, we can take a
I need to
quick
use the
break.
bathroom
Good,
too.
because I got to go too.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. We just want to take a quick break here to give you a little preview of what's to come from Small Town Monsters. Please enjoy this short trailer for their new upcoming series, On the Trail of Bigfoot.
The appeal to me of the Bigfoot topic is the consistency of accounts of it throughout legends and folklore and literature, and even previous to any photographic evidence of it.
There is an animal out here, nobody seems to know what it is. How do we study that and make it a reality?
The documents are still there waiting in the file in courthouses and libraries and historical societies, and these stories need to be researched again.
If you went down and talked to farmers on that road today, they're probably similar to what people are reporting in that area today.
We had been out there investigating repeated sightings, screams, and the glowing eye incidents.
A lot of these creatures generally range from 6 to about 9 feet tall, sometimes very broad-shouldered, very long arms, sometimes extending down beyond the knees, almost to the ground in some cases.
I'm one of those individuals that tend to think there's a different kind of hairy creature in the South that's more chimpanzees-like.
It is the skunk ape, but there are equal number of sightings in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in Oklahoma, in Texas, southeast Texas.
People misconstrue what we're trying to do. We're not trying to prove Bigfoot's real. Everybody in the Olympic Project pretty much has had an experience or a sighting, and we're kind of in the knowing camp. We're trying to do as much documentation as we can of evidence, and what we're trying to do is develop patterns. Over time, then we might start being able to work towards predictability.
Well, are we back in? Yeah, and we're back. So I had kind of because I'm fascinated by the Area X thing. It's awesome that you guys got to go there. So this, when I was listening to bits of that from the End of the Fray, which by the way, that's a great podcast, and I will be listening. Shannon, it's a great show.
She'll listen to this.
Okay, cool. But when I was listening to that, I had a thought popped into my head, and I wonder if you guys have gotten this from anybody, and I'm sure probably people have, like the two different camps when it comes to the ethical conduct when it comes to searching for Bigfoot, right? So have you heard this? Like, yeah. So like
it's a thread that runs throughout the series,
right? And I was just listening to when I found Monstertropolis. I found that last night. Listened to your latest episode today, which is the Sierra
Sounds.
Sierra Sounds, and it was the recording, and that, which I never heard a term before, that like a samurai
chatter.
Yeah, samurai chatter.
Yeah.
And it made me think, like,
which I've heard, but
right. Oh, you've heard, like, in real life?
I've heard in real life.
Okay.
When we actually in the woods while we were filming.
Okay.
With the Japanese TV show.
What? Was it them? This is getting confusing.
It's the most confusing, and that's why I don't tell the story very often.
It sounds wonderful.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Brandon and I that night.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Were you with us still when that happened? Something.
I had gone home the day before.
Yeah, he went home the day before. Brandon and I had something throwing rocks and talking in this.
You heard that?
In the middle of the woods while we were by ourselves, and we knew where the Japanese film crew was. So
that's weird.
I don't tell it because that story makes you sound like like you're the most naive idiot, because everyone you're saying you're in there with like an Asian film crew and you're in this spot and like you're in there looking for something, so we don't even bother telling the story.
There's a monster doing the samurai speak.
So for all of you listeners out there who have not heard this clip, either YouTube it, maybe we'll throw it in, but is it called
Samurai Chatter?
Yeah. Samurai Chatter, yeah.
There's a quick clip of it in the 5th episode of On the Trail of Bigfoot, which is the Area X episode, because they've actually recorded something similar.
That's crazy. Wow. So there's a tie-in, there's a thread of consistency with and that's what's fascinating. When I heard that the first time, I was like, yeah, it sounds like old Japanese people, and I did, of course, Samurai Chatter makes sense. Totally racist. But
it's horrible.
But then I thought, like, okay, so then there's this issue of like communication. There's a language at play, and in this your most recent episode, which is really good, by the way, of Monstertropolis. Monsteropolis. Sorry, I always say that. So when I was listening to that, and I thought the idea of language that you guys touched on, and that's the problem that people have with. When they hear that and they think, okay, this is something that takes them into the human realm a little bit, right? A little bit of sentience going on. And then it goes back to the group that you were with in Area X. Like, if there is a shot that takes out a Bigfoot and a hand is retrieved or a head, which, like, I get the argument, like, you want to preserve the area, you want to preserve the species for science. Yeah. Have you had people push back on that? I guess it hasn't come out yet.
Well, not against me.
Well, yeah.
Because I don't. Here's the thing, though. I mean, personally, I agree with them.
Right.
Like, there's no other way to prove it.
Right.
Like I get it.
Take the shot.
Yeah, I get it that people have a moral or ethical, opposal to it. But if you legitimately are interested in proving they exist, if that's your, and the final episode of On the Trail of Bigfoot is all about this. Like it's about the fact that everyone is in this for different reasons. Like some people are just into Bigfoot because they want to have some sort of interaction for themselves. And some people are in it because they want to prove it. And some people are in it because they just like
the folklore.
Like, well, that's me. But
right.
But there's the people who just like the attention. It's about like all the different facets of like the reasons why people are into this. But if you're into it because you believe you've seen a Bigfoot and you believe they exist and you want to prove that they're there, that's the only way you do it.
Right.
There's science doesn't accept video evidence.
Right.
Well, that makes total sense too. Coming from the Project X guys, you said the majority of them have had
Area
multiple
X.
encounters.
Yeah.
Area X guys, Project X.
Well, I mean, the lead guy, Daryl, he's former military intelligence, 20 years military intelligence. He goes out in those woods when he's in there. He's in there for a week. He's in those woods for like 8-9 hours at a time by himself, camoed up behind a blind with his gun, just waiting to kill one.
Right.
And within 3 hours of getting in there, he saw one.
Wow.
Within 3 hours of us getting in there, he was scoping one in.
Oh, crazy. That's right. I heard you and you're like, take the shot.
I just wanted him. I not only wanted him to take the shot, I wanted to be with it. I was so mad at myself that I didn't stay with him.
Right.
Because as a filmmaker, I should have known that was what I should have done.
That's the guy who's going
to... Because the next day, I'm going to have a chance to walk around everywhere and do all the other stuff. You're only going to have, like one or the other days I needed to be with Daryl.
Right.
And it should have been right then.
The first
I should have
day.
posted up with Daryl, sat in his blind with him, and just filmed him, even if nothing happened. But I mean, can you imagine, like the footage I would have had?
Yeah.
I might not have got a shot of the ape, but I mean, he was like, when he came back, he was so frustrated and upset, and you can see that.
Yeah.
I have a shot of him coming back into camp, and you can just see he's just like heartbroken over it.
And that's it's not something you can fake. I mean, that kind of like, he was obviously authentically affected by it.
No, like Daryl is the most authentic person in that episode, and that's saying something. Like, I love all the people in there, but he is like he wears his heart on his sleeve, and like he wanted to kill one.
Right.
He wants to kill one because he wants to prove that they exist so he can save the species. Because in his mind, the deforestation of America is a very real thing, and it will eventually affect the species of undiscovered ape that would be living in those forests.
Right.
And people say, this is something that's interesting, is like, I don't consider myself like an environmentalist. I'm not, I just have never been that guy.
Yeah.
But the most eye-opening thing about that episode, maybe for me, or that experience for me, might not have even been the apes. It was the fact that we went into a place that you can see where the real forest is. Like, you can see what the sort of last vestiges of real wild frontier can look like, and what the replanted pine forest that's stuck there because they just knocked everything down looks like, and the impact that has on local wildlife and the environment stuff.
Yeah,
like
visually,
that.
how do those differ? Because you saw
Oh, it's
both.
crazy. You'll see them. You'll see them in the episode.
Okay.
The craziest thing about that road into Area X is half the road. The first hour of the road is a logging road. So you come through clear cut. Like, I droned right over those clear cut areas. You'll see what that looks like, but you'll also see what the replanted forests look like right up next to the actual old growth forest. So, like, it's crazy. It's like looking at a pine tree farm next to
a jungle,
a real jungle,
like all geometrically planted and unnatural. Weird.
They're not natural. They're not natural. Those are not natural to
They're
that
native
environment.
species,
It's
right?
not a native species whatsoever.
They're not even replanting with the native. Wow, that's odd.
No, it's a tree that will grow quickly in 20 years, and they can come back in and chop it down again.
It's sad.
And they say that they're replanting. They're whatever you want to call it. It's basically a pine tree farm in a what was once an old growth forest. Not old growth, but I mean as old growth as
varied species of trees and stuff.
Hardwood forest, with this ridiculous looking Christmas tree farm.
Right.
Next
A lot of Bigfoots hanging out there, I'm sure.
No, that was what was interesting to me, is like, in Area X, we had rabbits coming to camp. You had squirrels coming to camp. They're not scared of people because people aren't in there. We had a bear circling the camp. I mean, like, there's bears. Yeah. In those forested areas, there's nothing. You don't see rabbit. You don't see, the replanted. You don't see any
wildlife
animals. There might be some deer hanging out, but they're just looking for cover.
Yeah.
Like, they're not living in there.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
So the impact, like, there's a part where I do this whole monologue about, like, if you realistically think about what something like the Bigfoot subject would mean to human history and humanity, like, it's immeasurable. Because most of the time we're also caught up in, like, the folkloric aspect of it, that I don't think we really look at. Crap! Like, if there is an actual, let's say 7 to 10 foot tall ape undiscovered in the forest behind your own home, the impact that has on humanity and human history and ecology and the logging industry and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, and then if you start to consider, like, a potentiality of some sort of sentience, like, that's a whole other.
Yeah,
could you communicate
especially ones
with
that
this?
have been hiding that well for so long.
Yeah.
They've been able to,
Well, I think that's an argument for a level of sentience, their ability to hide so well.
So I mean, this is the kind of thing that brings up all the questions. This is the kind of stuff we talked about on the drive home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then it becomes like, well, what? Like, maybe they only live in these not giant, but family groups or whatever. Like apes, like apes do, and a mountain gorillas will live in a pod or whatever they call them. I don't think it's a pod.
The whales?
Maybe they only live in, like, the most isolated places. Like, Area X makes sense to me because it's so isolated. And maybe there's tiny groups or lone stragglers that wander out into civilization every now and then you get a case like the Minerva monster
I've
and the
actually
Momo
heard
monster.
the I forget where I heard this, but it sounded kind of silly. The pylon lines in the forest that they were some people refer to as like Bigfoot highways, but
they'll travel them.
Yeah, and I heard it makes sense, the theory, because it connects to what primates will do when a primate, an adolescent, is kicked out or challenged the alpha male and is kicked out, they have to find another group, like you said, a family group. And in that in-between time is when you get those, they're not in their natural environment or their habitat. So
the straggling individuals.
So they'll go cross a road and get seen by a car. And, that's when you get most of the sightings.
And this is the kind of stuff that I don't think people consider. This is why I want people to watch On the Trail of Bigfoot, because this is why I love the subject and always have. I don't think I'd ever thought about personalities until I got into X and I had something that seemed genuinely happy.
Oh, that's interesting.
I hit the roof. That's exactly like you could picture a younger ape doing this. Like maybe it's dad standing there like you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, teenager. I did it. And then I think I heard you say in the other interview, like he did it, and then like it got really quiet. Like he's like, "Oh shit, that was loud."
Yeah, yeah. No, it was like there was this. It slams into it, and immediately there's like whoop, and then I can't do it. Adam does a really good imitation of it, but then the laughter started, and then it just like
God. Did that freak you out at all?
No.
Like, you would not really.
No, and that's the other thing I've talked about is my reaction to it was not what I had always expected. Because I always expected that incident, if it ever happened, and it wasn't a sighting, but I always expected that incident where your worldview gets immediately altered, at least to some degree. Because I went from being pretty much these don't exist to, okay, there's a really good chance they're out here. Because there's no other explanation for what just happened. It was the most natural thing that could have been happening. Like, it just was like hearing any other animal in the woods. And it wasn't
But it didn't seem
paranormal,
threatening.
it wasn't supernatural, it was not threatening.
It was joking?
Jubilant. That's the word I keep coming back to.
How big was the rock?
The rock had to have been huge, man.
Well, that's kind of scary.
The rock had to have been big because it crashed into that roof, and when it did, it echoed across the valley. Like you heard it echo across the valley. And that was the rock was like, but it was funny because the rock was such a small part of it. The rock hit, and it was just enough time between the rock and the whoop for me to sit up. And then there's the whoop. Then I can't remember if I said this to Adam between the whoop and the laughter or right after, but at one point I was like, stuff's about to start. Because I thought we were about to have the rain of rocks.
Yeah.
Like what had happened that I had heard on his show.
Yeah.
I thought that was what it was about to happen. And it wasn't. But it had to have been a good-sized rock. And they pulled a rock off the roof of the hooch, I think a day or two later, but they don't know that that's the same rock.
Right.
Because I guess at one point they threw a rock up there to see if it would make the same sound. Yeah, like they were trying to, they do all that stuff, like all the stuff that you would want to make sure that you're doing to remain skeptical.
And that for the listeners that don't know, and I guess I don't know why, this is probably common sense for most people, but I never really thought about it until recently. But yeah, no other animal is going to throw a rock. You need something with an opposable thumb.
Yeah. There's nothing that can throw a rock.
Right.
Not
Raccoons have opposable thumbs.
Can a dog
I don't think
man?
they throw.
A dog man could throw a rock.
Dog man could.
Science fact.
Definitely. There's no doubt. It's the Silver Creek dog man followed us to Oklahoma. It's classic dog man behavior.
Yeah, they just follow.
Running
It's
beside
like
our
road
car
tripping.
the whole
They
time.
got your scent.
Yeah.
They're going underground in the caves.
Yeah. But yeah, that opposable thumb thing, it's funny because like I really when we left, I was like, I'm so frustrated in a way because it's just enough to pull me pretty far toward that, like maybe they exist side of things, but not enough to drag me there all the way.
Yeah. Right.
Like, so it's still frustratingly just out of reach,
Still
which kind of
limbo a little bit.
perfectly exemplifies the entire subject in a way.
Well,
I
that's,
guess.
you know, and not to get into a whole other thing, but like anything 14 or whatever, I feel like any phenomenon, there always seems to be this aspect of just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough to keep everybody wondering, but never quite enough to have a completely clear picture of what's
Except
going
it isn't
on.
that way for all the people in there. That's the
Right,
thing.
that's-
Is like
that's
all
true.
these
Seen it,
people in
yeah.
this group that I'm talking to who've seen it, you know, like, and something had eye shine on a hill where there was no eye, where there was no light shining on it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm not saying that I 100%, this was the thing that they got frustrated with me was the fact that I used the term, it was self-illuminated.
Right.
And the point I was making was in that light where we were sitting, complete darkness, what I was seeing very much looked like 2 points of light.
Right.
So to my perception, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
It does not mean that I'm saying their eyes are, like I'm not
glowing.
making that statement. I'm just saying maybe there is a biological, perfectly rational
They just
explanation
have
for
like
that.
the ability to suck up light that is not visible to our eyes and reflect it.
Cast it out. Well, there are animals that,
especially if you don't know how their eyes work. And,
Yeah. Or how they're set on their
what
head.
What is the descriptions that these people, just a typical
all kinds?
Bigfoots?
No, I mean, this is what's crazy is like, and this is why the personality thing, there's old gray. So for years there were sightings of this thing, like multiple sightings, old gray. As big as 11 feet tall.
Wow, dude, that's terrifying.
11 feet tall is bigger than the basketball hoop pole outside of my parents' house. Like it's a
You would
big.
pee your pants.
You can't. That kind of thing is almost so big that to me I'm like, no. There's some sort of vision obstruction, or like you're getting turned around or something
in your mind.
Yeah, because it seems so big. But there's this one they called Old Gray, and then there was one that this one dude saw that he compared it to Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, the way it walked. He saw it walking off down the street, just kind of like long arms, like walking away down the street. And I pictured it in my head, and I was like, yeah, like that's probably the one that whooped at me. Sounds like something Shaggy would do.
It's trucking in through the woods.
Shaggy's throwing rocks at me.
Strutting around.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, those details are what's so fascinating because people are
that's real specific.
Yeah.
My favorite is Kathy Strands, and she tells the story in episode 3 or 4. And her sighting was of what she believes was a mother and a juvenile. And she was sitting in camp or something, and these two things were coming down the road, and they didn't realize they were there because they were just sitting there very quietly. And Kathy saw them, apparently jumped up and said, there they are. And as soon as she did, Brian and someone else turned around, saw them. The mama took off up this hill. The baby struggled for a second to move. She turned around and grabbed it, and they were gone. She said it was like they were on a bungee and someone let it go and you just saw them fly up this hill.
Yeah.
The mental image of it scooping up the baby and then going. I was like,
Just flying. Just slingshotting.
Yeah. The descriptions are so varied, and they're seeing young ones. And
Yeah, the details and just those little bits, man. I don't know. Yeah, I keep going back and forth on the Bigfoot phenomenon, and I haven't done enough for it. Like I know the basic need to know stuff in the historical accounts, but I do go back and forth on it, and I think part of that is you just get jaded on the topic too.
Oh yeah, I'll never fault someone for being 100% skeptical about it, because it's almost where I was when I went in there, and I totally get it. Especially for people who at one point were like me, and maybe they were way more open to it.
Yeah.
Because like there really is you get frustrated, especially if you're in the community, because the community can be so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The community has really, I don't know how much of it is the Bigfoot community, but there is a large part of like the paranormal community that's embraced us and has supported us. But you can get really skeptical and jaded about that stuff after a little while when there's so much nonsense. So much of what I'm saying is said in On the Trail of Bigfoot. It's like the most personal project. Like in the last episode, I talk about this.
Yeah.
Like I talk about how being into it, like there's all these personalities involved, and like those big personalities are the people that are defining the community. But really the community is made up of a wide variety of people.
Real people.
Yeah.
It's always the loudest ones that define that.
Yeah.
And I think it's the saturation of like, growing up, I was always interested in anything, spooky or cryptozoological or any sort of mystery and the folklore. And then, we get to our age now in our 30s, and like there's channels dedicated to this stuff. You get saturated by the content. And so much of it is just, what was that? Symbol rise, night vision, flash, go to commercial break. Not that all those are terrible, but it definitely like throws so much. It makes me believe less.
Right. I think there is a value in shows like Finding Bigfoot, especially for like the younger generation.
Yeah.
Like that's the stuff that's going to get them into it.
Yeah, my friends' kids are totally into Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah. But there was a need for like stuff that took it back to the roots, like took it back to like the in
honesty.
search of days.
Yes, in search of. Did you mention that earlier?
On the Trail of is like.
That's what I thought of when I heard
awesome.
that, dude.
That's
what
I'm excited about, because I used to, before YouTube, we grew up watching sightings, things like that. Then when YouTube came out, I would go to sleep.
Sightings was a huge part of Invasion on Chestnut Ridge.
Oh,
I watched
awesome.
a ton of sightings while I was at
That's
editing it.
awesome. I love that guy. That guy, Tim White, is now
Tim
like
White.
a news anchor for Cleveland. He used to be.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, then YouTube came out, and then I got to watch all the Leonard Nimoy In Search of stuff, and I could forget because I couldn't sleep because my girlfriend broke up with me, was sleeping with other guy, So then Leonard Nimoy is there to tuck me in at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy was there to
he's
say-
drowning out everything with, talking about Crystal Castle and Coral Castle.
Crystal Castle.
Coral Castle. Yeah.
Cool too.
That would be cool. No, so I'm excited that you guys are doing the more integritous, in my opinion. Not that some of those shows aren't great for certain things.
Well, what we done was done over years, and it was done with literally hours and 60, 70-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. Yeah, like 2 years working working a normal job while I was this.
Yeah. The first Kickstarter, the goal was $500.
Wow. We made $6,500, but it was $500. So like we were hoping for $500.
That's amazing. Wow, and you made $6,500 on that one?
Yeah.
Nice.
That was the
It's gonna be encouraging.
one. Yeah, no, it always is. Like the crazy thing is you do get discouraged by the community, and then things like the Kickstarter happens.
You know,
and
people
like,
really.
Oh
like
yeah,
it.
there is a lot of like support for what we're doing.
Yeah, there's just loud people on the other side. That, you know.
Oh yeah, that's endless. In fact, there was a guy, not far from here in PA, Ryan Cavallini.
Oh no.
What's his phone number?
Don't do this.
Like when we launched the Kickstarter, he don't do it. Leave it in. He launched his trailer, which I'm not going to give any publicity. He needs it though. He's only got like 20 views, but he launched his trailer as like he was going to like run it in to compete with ours, and the tagline he was running with was "So big it'll smash your small town."
Wow.
Oh, are you serious?
He tried to run a smear campaign against crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Like
what?
For weeks he's been trying to do it.
And I mean, our crowdfunding is very transactional. It's not a donation.
It's
going
people
to
are getting stuff.
Essentially, I say this all the time. You actually right now with all the stretch rewards, you're getting more than you would if you bought it out of our storefront. Like if you went and bought like a Momo t-shirt and posters and all that, you'd spend more than you're actually going to spend on the Kickstarter right now.
Yeah.
So it's to the point where like if you're an STM fan, you might as well back the Kickstarter because you're going to save money.
Right, exactly. By the way, and I mean, I guess we're getting close to the end, but you probably have things you want to promote because I want to get something of your, because I love your logo so much and your posters. I don't know if you guys sell those, but your film posters for your productions are awesome.
Regarding the posters, we should probably shout out Sam Sheeran,
Adrian, Zach, Matt Pepler for the on the Trail of Bigfoot ones, Steve Bissett, who was the Swamp Thing artist.
Yeah,
with
one
Alan
of my
Moore.
childhood
he did,
heroes.
That's
he
awesome.
did on the Trail of Champ poster.
I like that poster.
That's
a lot.
great. So yeah, we've gotten to work with some really cool artists.
Cool.
Kickstarter.
The
Kickstarter's live.
That's going on through the 9th?
Through March 9th.
Okay.
And then on the Trail of Bigfoot, if you're in Ohio, like the premiere at the Palace Theater would be really cool to see a lot of people at that.
Absolutely,
because,
yeah. I think the majority of our fans are Ohio centered.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we got a lot of local fans, so we could, guys, come out.
Yeah.
March 20, was it 29th?
It's March 29th. The doors open at 7:30, and we're going to show 4 of the 6 episodes. And Adam Dugan, who's in it, he's going to be there. Most of the STM crew is going to be there. I'm going to be there, and Shannon might be there. We're trying to get Shannon in, so like it's going to be like our big like event for the year. And
we'll be there.
Cool.
So anybody listening that hasn't met us in person, and
so
you're around,
guys will be there. We'll be there. But yeah, we'll do a quick Q&A afterward. And then the movie all our stuff will be for sale. But yeah, we have all our posters. Webstore has all the posters that we have in stock, which fluctuates. But I know right now we've got like Bray Road Beast is still in stock. Both Bray Road Beast posters are still in stock. And then, so yeah, we have all that stuff. I don't know, we have the t-shirt with the STM logo.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
We also have Zach's Halloween STM logo.
That one was cool with the pumpkins, the red, orange.
Yeah.
That was cool. So for your films, best place to stream those, or should be Amazon, or should they go to smalltownmonsters.com?
I mean, smalltownmonsters.com, everything comes to us.
Right.
So like if you like DVDs, but I will say
who doesn't?
They're DVDs. Like,
right. Get your dad's DVD player.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like streaming,
burn it so you can watch it on your computer.
Streaming, everything's on Amazon. Most of it's free through Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
if you really want to support us, you can buy them or rent them on there. But otherwise, they're completely free, so you can just watch them on there. Vimeo on demand, Vidi Space. Some of them are like on iTunes and stuff. Mothman, Invasion, and Boggy Creek. Those are distributed through Terror Films.
Okay. Go to smalltownmonsters.com.
Yeah, smalltownmonsters.com.
Awesome, man. Check them out, guys. They're really, really good documentaries. Probably the best I've seen when it comes to anything cryptozoological.
Yeah, anything in the last decade that I've seen, honestly, your guys' stuff is by far just the most. It's the most compelling and the most tastefully done artistically. And
cool.
It's just a great watch, man.
And we're neighbors.
Thank you.
And we're neighbors.
Yeah, right down the road.
Well, thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Come back again, y'all.
No.
That's fair. The final interview.
Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And that was our first interview with Small Town Monsters.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Small Town Monsters, again for coming on. Jason and Seth. Hopefully we'll meet more of the crew soon here coming up. Yeah, we had a great time with you guys. And if you guys are interested, any of our listeners in the area at the Canton Palace Theater in Ohio, they are going to have the premiere, which we mentioned in the interview, on March 29th.
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
For On the Trail of Bigfoot. I think they say they're playing the first 3 episodes in the theater.
I think it's the first 3.
We'll be there for that. If you guys are interested, you can go to the website, get more information, smalltownmonsters.com for tickets and showtimes or for the premiere time on March 29th. And we will be there. So if you want to say hi to us, you will.
Yeah, come out and meet the boys.
Yeah, and meet up the Small Town Monsters
pictures,
crew.
Please, though.
No pictures, please. But yeah, it's going to be a great time. So we hope to see you guys there, and check out their work at smalltownmonsters.com. And
also, if you guys want to support through Kickstarter, the latest project with Small Town Monsters coming up, Momo, and then The Terror in the Skies.
Go to kickstarter.com. Go to the website and find the link for Kickstarter, and you can still donate up through March 9th.
Mm-hmm. So which is only a couple days as this airs. So, get out there.
Get on there quick. Well, we will see you guys next time on the hole. So
in the hole, not on it.
And
it can't be on a hole.
Well, you're
Jeremy.
on it until you fall. So
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're right.
We're going to push you in.
I take it back.
You're going in the hole, Jeremy.
We'll see you guys in the hole. Thanks again.
Ugly woman.
Good night.